Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside. And that show that never ends, it's the losing streak for the Kansas City Royals. They've now dropped 9 games in a row. They have an off day today, though. It's an off day mentally for us, for you, and for the boys in blue as well. Welcome into 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dzwierzynski here with you. Dan Lucero is on vacation. No, he is not at the Denver Nuggets championship parade today. If he was, he might be partying pretty hard. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and say that he would be like me and be stone cold sober during the entire thing, but he probably would not be as sloshed as Denver Nuggets head coach Mike Malone is today. Never seen a coach get as drunk at a championship parade as Mike Malone is today. But hey, your franchise waits 56 years, 47 while in the NBA to get a championship. You might as well go party. You might as well go celebrate. We'll talk a little bit about that coming up in headlines today. But Dan is off from now through next Wednesday, so it is just you and me on 580 Sports Talk, although that is not quite accurate either, because making his triumphant return to 580 Sports Talk for the first time in, I believe, almost an entire year at this point, our good pal Kyle Manthe is here too. Kyle, what's going on?
Not a lot. Excited to be here. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. We'll have Kyle along for a little either or over under coming up later on in the show. We'll do some What Is Wrong With You in the 4 o'clock hour, right around 4:20 as well. And he'll be with us in studio throughout the day today. We would love to get your takes, your thoughts on anything we are talking about on the program this afternoon. Hit us up either on the text line. The text line number is 785-272-9429. As always, same number as the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. And you can also join in on the YouTube comments. The comment section's wide open. Head to our YouTube channel. It's called Sports on 580 WIBW. YouTube.com, search Sports on 580. That's all you have to type in. Will be the first result. Make sure you subscribe, and then you can hop in, watch the video version of the show, and hang out with us throughout the afternoon in the comment section as well. We do have a bunch to get to. We will talk a little bit about the Kansas City Royals here in the opening hour of the show. They've lost 9 straight. There's one good thing that came out of this series with the Cincinnati Reds. One single thing that was good that came out of it. And it really didn't change anything because the Royals still got swept and they've now lost 9 games in a row. But we'll talk a little bit about last night's game. We'll talk about why this is officially a big day for the Royals and a big day for Aroldis Chapman. And I've got some creative, somewhat humorous, and somewhat desperate ways that maybe we can find a way to spark something. Maybe we'll spark joy. We'll go full Marie Kondo. We'll spark joy in the Kansas City Royals. Some creative ideas for getting that done coming up a little bit later on this hour. As I mentioned, Kyle will join us for some either or over under. And Rick Peterson is going to stop by on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for this week's edition of the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Round. We'll see what Pistol is up to now that spring sports are done for the year. And he is a sports writer, especially someone who's done enough in the business and writes as much and works as hard as Pistol. There's never really a full off season, but it's kind of the off season right now as we hit the summer months. So we'll talk to Pistol all about that coming up later on this hour. Also on the show today, we'll talk a little bit about Chris Jones, still holding out for mandatory minicamp, which is now done as of today. But Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes both spoke about him and both put me from about 95% certain, fitting percentage given his number, 95% certain a deal is going to get done, a new extension is going to get done with Chris Jones, to like 96, 97% sure. Because Brett Veach doesn't lose when he tries to get guys that he wants and this team wants, and because everybody seems pretty convinced this is going to get done by the start of training camp. So we'll talk a little bit of Chris Jones. Fulton is going to join us coming up in the 4 o'clock hour as well for our crosstalk this week. He didn't talk about the Royals today on Mic'd Up, or at least there was minimal Royals talk. At least I've been led to believe that. So we'll get his thoughts on the losing streak. We'll ask him about his alma mater, which also happens to be my alma mater, KU, and the football recruiting unbelievable week that the Jayhawks are having. We'll touch on Jalen Todd's commitment in headlines. Lots to get to in headlines, in fact. A new NIL bill that is working its way through the U.S. Congress that looks like a disaster. Diamond Sports Group in even more trouble. That's the Bally Sports folks. They're in even more trouble. NFL running back news today. Jonathan Taylor, the latest running back to talk about the I'll just call it the running back problem, that no one's going to get paid, no one's getting long-term contracts, guys are holding out. And the thought that while I think some guys are certainly deserving of a big contract, I don't know that they're actually going to get it. And we'll wrap things up today with more absolutely horrible garbage from Rob Manfred, the worst commissioner in the history of professional sports. And again, we'll take your text. We'll take your YouTube comments as well. Text line is 785-272-9429. And the YouTube comment section can be found on our channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. I have also been informed that Jake and Fulton did indeed talk about the Royals. Appreciate Vance letting us know, and all you guys who also checked out Mic'd Up today, that the guys did talk about the Royals. So I'm not breaking the boycott. I'm not crossing the picket line here, but I think we're going to address them a little bit more than the guys did yesterday or today on the show, last show, whatever. I'm flying solo. We're playing fast and loose with the rules here for the next few days here on 580 Sports Talk. Solo in studio. Anyway, as for the Royals, let's just dive right in, head first into the deep end. They've lost 9 straight games, and this one was, I think this was more painful than the loss on Monday. I saw Fulton tweet after or almost at the end of the game on Monday that the Royals really impressed him with the way that they keep finding new painful ways to lose. It was something to that effect. And I've got to say, I'm impressed because within the span of one series, in this 9-game losing skid, they found yet another more painful way to lose a game. Monday, it was the play that was overturned at the plate. They give the Reds the run in extras. It's all over from there. Last night, and then there was the loss on Tuesday also by the score of 5-4. But last night, we get a game in which the Royals get 15 hits. That's right. Your Kansas City Royals, 15 hits in a 9-inning baseball game. They turned into 4 runs. 15 hits turned into 4 runs. Compare and contrast that with their opponents from the Queen City of Cincinnati, Ohio. They had just 7 hits. They scored 7 runs. Now, that happens much more easily when you hit 4 home runs in a game. They were teeing off. It was home run derby at the K, which is not something that happens all too often. The Reds scored 7 runs despite having 3 at-bats, not 3 hits, not 3 times in one inning. 3 total at-bats with runners in scoring position last night, and they scored 7 runs. The Royals, with their 15 hits, they then had 15 at-bats with runners in scoring position, 5 times more. They had 2 hits. The Royals left 14 runners on base yesterday. Again, I am impressed that you could find another way to somehow make this more painful and to somehow make this more embarrassing, that the offense actually comes through. The offense actually put up a handful of decent numbers in the game, at least the raw counting box score numbers. Because again, 2 out of 15 with runners in scoring position, that's pretty awful. Leaving 14 runners on base, that's pretty awful. Didn't hit for a ton of power, didn't slug a lot. 4 of the 15 hits were extra base hits. That's fine. He had 2 hits from Michael Garcia, who had to come in for Sal after Sal got hurt. Hopefully he's okay long-term. Sounds like he's day-to-day. MJ had a couple hits. Witt had 3 hits in the game. You had 4 from Edward Olivares. All singles, which is funny. I guess is the right word, wrong word. I'm not even sure. Tyron Blanco had 2 hits. All these dudes, multiple hits. He scored 4 runs. It's amazing how they, to again, paraphrase Fulton's wording from the other day, find new, more painful ways to lose almost every single time out. And it would lead you to believe that at some point they're going to break through. At some point they're going to have a game when the pitching actually shows up. You know, we'll use Jordan Lyles as an example, shall we? That Lyles shows up, isn't horrible, and the bats are also good in the same game, and it turns into a win for the Royals. You'd think that would happen. Or a game where they just hit so much they can't help but score runs. But folks, that was not yesterday's game. I don't even know where to analyze from here, because I would love to give you the breakdown. I would love to give you, well, this is why, or if you change this, or if you update this, it's going to be different. 4 runs isn't embarrassing, but it's also not great when you, again, have 15 hits. Daniel Lynch, also not good. Here's the good about Daniel Lynch from yesterday. There's rarely a whole lot of good you get when you pitch 7 innings, give up 7 hits, and allow 7 earned runs. More than half the hits you allowed were home runs. You only struck out 3, and let's walk 2 for good measure. It's not usually a good thing when you get out-dueled by a guy who didn't get out of the 6th inning and gave up 10 hits. And yet, Daniel Lynch gave us something good, gave the Royals something good yesterday. He gave the bullpen a respite. That's what he did. He gave the bullpen a little bit of a break. All you had to use was 2 relievers yesterday. You got 1 inning out of Nate Whitgren, and you got 1 inning out of Jose Cuas. That's all you needed. Those guys breezed through 25 pitches combined for the 8th and 9th inning. Easy. Light work for the Royals bullpen. Needed that because that group needs a break. They probably need a couple of breaks. Lynch, however, went 7 innings and gave up 7 runs and 4 home runs. It's unfortunate, but, I mean, hey, that's where this team is. That's where we are. We're going to address when the next win, really when the next 2 wins for the Royals will come, because as painful as this is, as embarrassing as this is, the Royals will win at least 2 more games this season. I am confident in that. They will get to the 20-win threshold at some point. I don't know when, and I'm going to ask Kyle about that coming up in our next segment. I don't know when those wins are going to come, but they will at some point get there, even though right now it does not feel like they are ever going to get there. But I wanted to take a look at ways that maybe we could inspire a little creativity and a little uniqueness to try to gain a little spark for this Royals team that right now is playing like trash. And one of the places where this could come from is being as aggressive as humanly possible on the base paths. This is a Royals team that likes to run generally when they get on, if they can do so. Now, they didn't steal any bases yesterday, of course, but they like to run. They've got a decent amount of speed. You've got one of the fastest players in all of baseball, for example, in Bobby Witt Jr. Now, you've also got some guys, Nick Prado, Salvador Perez, pre-injury, Vinny Pasquantino, not exactly tearing it up, but you've got a number of guys you can trust to go swipe a base. Dairon Blanco led the minors this year before getting recalled from Omaha. All of minor league baseball led them in total number of stolen bases. So I think in general, the one thing we could look to is being as aggressive as possible. You get a runner on first base, you are going for second. Anytime Bob Witt gets on base, he should be trying to steal at this point this year. I don't have the caught stealing numbers in front of me. Again, we know the speed for Witt is never going to be in question now. His ability to take pitches, sometimes some fielding miscues, things like that. Consistency at the plate, those are issues. But getting on base, nah, that's not an issue. Or stealing bases, I should say. Using his foot speed when he gets on base, pardon me. He's been caught 6 times this year, already almost as many as last year, but he's got 21 stolen bases as well. If Bob Witt gets on base and there's nobody blocking him in front of him, if Perez is on second and he's on first, okay, you're obviously not doing anything there. If Witt is on base with someone in front of him or without someone in front of him, you go steal the base. Every single time. I want to see the Royals be the most aggressive team going after second base. Hell, going after third base in all of Major League Baseball. On one hand, okay, you get caught a few more times. You give away a few more outs on the base paths. One, the Royals are already a poor base running team this year, just in general, on non-stealing plays especially. And secondly, okay, you're going to make the outs anyway. Like, eventually you're going to bring up, I know Massey had a couple of hits last night. Or no, he didn't. He went hitless yesterday. Sorry, Bob Witt and Edward Olivares, the 2 guys on the opposite sides of him in the box score, each had multiple hits yesterday. At some point, Michael Massey is going to come up, who is now, I think, 2 for 28 this month, close to 2 for 28. Eventually, Nicky Lopez is going to come up. Freddie Fermin is going to come up. Take the bases. You're either going to get into scoring position, you force the other team to run the risk of throwing the ball away, giving you a break, or, okay, you go back to the dugout and we're pretty much in the exact same spot where you would have been anyway. Be as aggressive as possible. That brings me to my most creative idea. And the idea that I think is probably dumb to most people. In fact, probably to some members of this Royals team who have been around for a little while. They've actually heard of this and they might think it's dumb. Do you remember going back to, this must have been 2019, I believe, maybe 2018, the Billy Hamilton era in Kansas City? Billy Hamilton, by the way, was outrighted to AAA by the White Sox this week. Surprised that a guy who is now in his early 30s, who has never been able to hit, is still not able to hit. But we have to go back to, it was 2019 when Billy Hamilton played 93 games with the Kansas City Royals. And in those 93 games, did use his speed plenty. He only hit 211. His on base was 275 in those 93 games, but he did steal 18 bases. He's one of the fastest players in recent memory in Major League Baseball. Still thinking the minors because of Dairon Blanco, who we'll get to in a second. But it was proposed, and I can't remember if this was in a newspaper article or if this was brought up by management or where this idea came from. But I do have vivid memories of saying, what if you took Billy Hamilton out of the starting lineup, you took him out of the outfield, and he was a designated early game pinch runner? Someone who was maybe not a great bat or a bat that you could afford to only have come in once or twice. They get on base. They get a hit. They draw a walk. Probably not a walk. But they get on base. You pull them in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth inning. And that's when Billy Hamilton enters the game. He's essentially your designated pinch runner. Now, the current Royals are not going to, well, they can't really do that because no one gets on base generally, except for last night when they had 15 hits and scored 4 runs. Beside the point. You're not taking Bob Witt out of the game because he is too valuable. His reps are way too valuable. You're not taking Nick Pratto out at this point. You really can't take MJ Melendez out because as much as he struggled this year, he's actually been hitting the ball a decent amount over the last couple of weeks. But let's, throw someone else out there. Throw Olivares out there. You're in the 4th inning. Olivares gets on base. You know he can't field. Okay? We know that is only going to lead to bad things happening in the outfield. In fact, he had another bad day in the outfield yesterday, generally speaking. A couple misplays of balls. Also had a nice play, but generally speaking, you don't want him in the outfield. Put Dairon Blanco in at that point. If Edward Olivares gets on first base, hell, if he gets on second base with a double, that's when Dairon Blanco goes into a game. Now, Blanco, again, recency bias would lead you to say, hey, no, we want his bat in. He was hitting well in Omaha. He's actually hitting decently when he got up to the majors. I don't trust that is going to keep up. We saw his not even quite full cup of coffee last year with this Royals team. I don't necessarily expect Dairon Blanco to be a major offensive contributor for this Royals team for the rest of the season, all the way through the first weekend of October. So what if you put him into the game when there was already someone on base? What if you knew there was an opportunity where you could get him on base and get his speed working? You end up with Nicky Lopez gets a hit. I don't know. I don't know who the player would be. The Royals do not have a whole lot of depth. I understand all of these things. I'm trying to be creative. I'm trying to give you a unique idea. Nicky Lopez gets on base, which is a rarity these days. Pull him. I know Blanco plays the outfield. You're going to have to make a double switch at some point. I understand things are going to get difficult. And you like having Nicky's glove out there since no one else can field anyway. You got to score runs. At some point, you can't win games. Well, at every point, you can't win games by always scoring fewer runs, by scoring 1, by scoring 2. The first 6 games of this losing streak, we went over the numbers the other day going into this Reds series. We talked about it on Monday's show. The Royals were averaging 2.3 runs a game through 6 games. You can't live like that in Major League Baseball. Certainly can't win, and you really can't live like that in Major League Baseball. Get the guys on the base paths more. Find more speed. Maybe at the deadline, you end up, you take a throw-in from someone. Whoever you send Scott Barlow to, that's a condition of the trade. Hey, we want one of your top 12 prospects in your system, and we need the fastest guy on your team who generally isn't playing. We need whoever your version of Terrence Gore is. We need him back in a trade. Some team is going to be willing to give that up in all likelihood. Use it. Use that to your advantage. That's your 26th man. Have him be your designated pinch runner. Be as aggressive as humanly, physically possible on the base paths. Try to win on the margins. I asked Dan for his take on this before he took off for vacation. And he said, for the Royals, it's all about the importance of winning on the margins, the marginal runs, winning with defense, winning with base running. We're pretty much of the same mind here. Defense, I don't know. I don't know if that is suddenly going to be fixed this year for the Royals. It's just not a very good defensive team overall. What do you have to give a lot of playing time in the outfield to guys like Edward Olivares? Obviously, you're going to have struggles with that. Nick Pratto, not a great defender. We've been over all of these things. But winning on those marginal things. So does it make a ton of sense to say, well, you're going to give away a bunch of extra outs running on the base paths? Maybe not. Analytically, that certainly is not the smart thing to do. But this team has to find something. They have to try something. And I have been, I think, not generous necessarily, but I think I have been fair in giving praise, or at least, respecting the fact that Matt Quattrero, among the rest of the staff, has tried different things to try to get this offense cooking, to try to get this team to play with a little more consistency, to congeal together a little bit more. Moving MJ Melendez full-time to the outfield, taking away those catcher duties, saying Bobby Witt Jr. is a shortstop. He's not going to move to third. We're not going to try him at second. No, he is a shortstop. Simplifying things, being more intentional with what they do fielding-wise, approach at the plate-wise to try to get these things figured out. Going with the opener approach at least once every 5 days through the rotation to try to maximize your abilities from Carlos Hernandez, Mike Myers, etc., even though Myers has now fallen off a cliff in these last couple of outings. I respect and appreciate the fact that they have done that. Let's try a little more. Let's get a little funkier with it. And the biggest reason why, and if you don't think this is a fair reason, fine, so be it. We can agree to disagree on that. Why not? What could be worse? You are the worst team in baseball. Major League come to life is better than you right now in the Oakland A's, who almost beat the Rays again last night, by the way. Tampa Bay did come back and end up winning that game. But the A's took 2 of the last 3 from the best team in Major League Baseball. That team is better than you right now. That is not a better roster. That is not better management. At least we don't think it is. Not at least since Dayton Moore got fired. You've got to try something. It cannot get worse than this point we are at right now. It certainly cannot. Mark in the YouTube comments, love this, says the Royals maybe need to bring Ric Flair in to talk. Maybe Hulk Hogan, somebody, anybody. Yeah, give me a pro wrestling promo. Give me someone who can come in and fire them up. I don't need a good guy. I don't need a babyface coming in here and giving a real inspirational one. I need some heel heat. I need someone to come in here. I need that cheap heel heat to come in and talk about how these guys are scrubs, how they're worthless, nobody cares about them, all their fans are dopes, all of that. That's what I need. I need old school bad guy wrestling promos cut in the clubhouse every single day to inspire something in this team. Whatever you can try that is different, that is unique, that is creative, to spark something, some sort of positive momentum, I am in the camp of. I am open at this point to anything. I will put my cards on the table and say that I am open to anything the Royals want to try, because right now, this is as bleak, as bad as I think it can possibly get for the Royals. They're worse than the A's. We did a whole segment for a week making fun of how bad the A's were, chasing history, and they have passed this Royals team. Try anything. I am begging you. Designated pinch runner. Bunting for hits more often because you can't swing the bats well. Whatever it takes, just do something to get something going offensively. Pitching, that's too far gone. I have nothing for you with the pitching staff. Offensively, though, you can get at least a little bit more unique, a little bit more creative. And if it doesn't work, okay, then nothing changes and we're right back where we started. That's better than not trying at all, at least in my stance. By the way, I teased this at the very top. Today marks the end of the temporary no trade period for Aroldis Chapman and any other free agent who was signed this offseason. Players had to wait up until today before they could be traded if they signed as a free agent during this past winter, which means the Royals can move Chapman at any point. And to me, that means the Royals should be looking to move Chapman as soon as possible, because there's more value to another team, a team that's contending but needs bullpen help, to say, hey, you'll get Aroldis Chapman for half of June, all of July, August, September into the playoffs. So 3.5 months plus playoffs, as opposed to, we'll hold him till July 31st and trade him at the deadline when an acquiring team would get him for just 2 months and possibly the playoffs. Way more value to move him now. So move him now. It's a lost year. He's built up his value. Move him right now. Make it easier on everyone. Maximize your return. That's what I would do. But, well, there's a reason JJ Piccolo has that job and not me. And depending on your stance on JJ Piccolo in this front office, maybe you wish those roles were flipped. Also, maybe what you think about me hosting this program. Speaking of, it's just myself and Kyle Manthe here with you for the next few days while Dan's on vacation. Kyle's going to hop on with us coming up on the other side of this break. We'll play a little either or over under. And Rick Peterson from TopSports.News will join us a little bit later on this hour for this week's Envista Credit Union High School Whip Around. All that's coming up in this opening hour of 580 Sports Talk. 580 Sports Talk on a Thursday afternoon. Brendan Dzwierzynski here with you. Kyle Manthe now joining us from the other side of the glass for a little either or over under, our weekly Thursday staple. All right, first one I've got for you, Kyle, is an over under, but really it's more of a before and after. I'll give you June 26th. That's the next Royals off day that the Royals get to 20 wins. They have 18 right now. They're 18-50. Before or after June 26th, they get their next 2 wins. They have, by the way, the Angels coming up this weekend. They've got a series with the Tigers in there who aren't very good. And then they get the best team in baseball, the Tampa Bay Rays. But the Rays struggling with the A's this week.
Yeah, I started scouting out the schedule, saw the Angels. I thought maybe they could get one from them. I think they won 1 or 2 games against them the first time they played them. Detroit, they're in the AL Central, so they are mid or worse. And then I saw Tampa Bay for 4 games, and I thought, well, maybe they can get one, but not too great there. I still think they do it. Maybe that's too optimistic.
Okay.
If they can't get 2 games, that'll mean they'll have won 1 of their last 21 games if they fail to win 2 more games, which seems statistically impossible for baseball.
Yeah, that's kind of why I was leaning with the before on that one, too. It just is so wildly unlikely that you could lose so many games. And I know this team sucks, okay? I know it. I know the A's have been horrible, and they went through a stretch like that earlier this year. I know, but this is baseball, and you just don't lose games like that. Eventually, at some point, you get lucky. Hell, as much as it feels like it's been all season, it's only been 9 games since the Royals last won. Wow, what a bleak way to put it. I will say before, too, the Tigers aren't very good, even though you have them on the road. I still don't trust the Angels. I like the Angels because I love Mike Trout. I like Shohei Ohtani. I like that team. I don't trust them, though, and I don't really know why anyone would, to be frank. So, yeah, I'll say before, too. In the next, how many games would that be? 9 games, they will win twice. That's essentially what I'm saying. We'll see. The fact that is the optimistic approach is really unfortunate.
I wouldn't go higher than 2 games in that stretch.
Agreed.
And feel confident.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. Wish they had the 4 against the Tigers instead of the 4 against the Rays. That would make me feel a little bit better. Second one I've got for you. Here was an either or over under. So we talked yesterday on the show about Quarterback, the new series from Netflix that's debuting next month. Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and Marcus Mariota. We're taking Patrick Mahomes out of this question because I know no matter how many years you're getting him for, you're taking Patrick Mahomes. So you get either one of these 2 situations. Your generic NFL team, just any team with an average roster, you get 2 years locked in, cannot get rid of Marcus Mariota, or you get 4 years, cannot get rid of him, locked in Kirk Cousins. Which are you taking?
Are we factoring in like contract numbers or anything? Is it just performance on the field?
Let's just do performance. Yeah, let's just do, because if you're talking contract, I think you probably have to take Mariota because you can get out of it quicker. But let's just do performance.
I think even with the performance, I think I'll just take Mariota.
Okay.
You're not going to win a Super Bowl with either of those guys.
Yeah.
And at least we saw Mariota. He had a couple spurts with the Falcons this year where they weren't as terrible as I thought they were.
Yeah.
So maybe he'll make it entertaining. I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to make it all that entertaining for you while you win like 10 or 11 games and then lose in the wild card of the divisional round. So I'll just eat my 2 years of Marcus Mariota and cut the time in half and be on my way.
Yeah, I think that's the draw for going Mariota, right? Is that you end up in a situation where, okay, this might suck for the next couple of years, but it's only 2 years. And you have the potential that something really stupid is going to happen on the field, which is at least fun, right? Like that's at least a little entertaining. Cousins, you know what you're getting. But I kind of feel like I might go with Cousins here because you're going to win. Like you're probably going to win 9 to 11 games most seasons with an average roster. It won't be the most fun, but he'll put up some decent numbers. You could spend most of a season saying, maybe I was wrong about him. Like maybe he is okay. Maybe this will be decent. And then you'll get knocked out early in the playoffs and then can just kick back and enjoy the rest of the postseason. So I think I might go Cousins, but the idea of being able to move on from either of them shorter term, I think is definitely the most appealing trait for either one of those. That's either or over under. Kyle will be back coming up in just about an hour for What Is Wrong With You, just under an hour, in fact. Right now, though, we'll get to a commercial break. When we come back, Rick Peterson from TopSports.news will join us here on 580 Sports Talk. Joining us now on 580 Sports Talk, as he does every single Thursday at the bottom of the 3 o'clock hour, it's Rick Peterson from TopSports.news for the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Round. You can find Pistol on Twitter at Peterson_Rick. And, of course, go follow all of his phenomenal work covering our local teams, Preps and Washburn, over at TopSports.news. Pistol, how are you today?
I'm great.
What have you been up to recently now that we are, I was saying this earlier, for a sports writer, for people who work in the media business, there's never truly an off season, but now that the actual games have stopped for the spring season, what have you been up to these last couple weeks?
Well, we've been putting together all the all Shawnee County teams, and we're finally done with that. We got soccer was the last one a day or two ago. And then been working on getting everything, all the awards, all the nominees together, and getting ready for our awards program on the 28th. And then we'll go right into our summer project. But still enough to keep me busy, but a lot more free time than I had a few weeks ago.
Yeah, well, hey, good to be a little busy and good to get a little bit of a breather, too, because we know how wild the end of the spring schedule gets. Let's touch real quick on that All-City Girls First Team. It's up at the website right now if you want to read through it. Again, that's topsports.news. I believe it's on page 2 of the latest news on the front page. Let's run through that list, Pistol. How deep were the nominees for this year's All-City Girls Soccer team? Was this a year where, it was pretty obvious who was going to go at the top of the list, or did you guys really have to dig through and make some tough decisions to put it all together this year?
I'll be honest with you. Brian Hensel, who's, kind of him and Klaus Kreutzer are the kind of the deans of the soccer coaches, and but Brian Hensel, he kind of really helps me with that list. He sends out emails to all the coaches, and then the coaches send in their nominations, and then they kind of vote on it, which I really appreciate it, because you need to know the nuances of soccer to really make a good decision. And those guys know who's really good on the defensive end and who are the really good goalkeepers and things like that. But I will, to answer your question, yes, I thought it was very deep this year. In fact, there were some girls that didn't make the team that I thought could have, but it was just so, and you don't want to have like 30 on the first team. I think they had 15, if I remember right. But it was very deep, I thought.
Do you ever get pushback on these lists, Pistol? And I'm not trying to invite anyone to give you pushback for these lists, but you've done these for so long across publications. Do you ever hear from people who say, "Hey, why didn't you include so and so?" Or do you ever have to answer, why the criteria was what it was?
Maybe once in a while, but not too often. Part of the thing is I make sure that I put in right up at the top, hey, coaches made the recommendations, or coaches voted on this, and it does vary a little bit from sport to sport.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I try to do is if the coaches don't get together and vote or have their own vote, I make sure that I send out at least to as many coaches as I can get a hold of to get their thoughts on it. And I think that does help, because I think at least people know you kind of work at it a little bit and don't just throw it together.
We're chatting with Rick Peterson from TopSports.News. He joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline for this week's Invista Credit Union High School Whip Round. You can find Pistol on Twitter. As always, his handle is @Peterson_Rick, and his work can be found over at TopSports.News. Before we get to some of the other events in the coming weeks around the city for athletes, Pistol, I did want to ask your thoughts on a former Topeka High athlete. He was a transfer from Jeff West. Danny Saili, who it was announced earlier this week, is committing after spending a year in the JUCO football ranks. He's going to Oklahoma. He spent, I believe it was just one season playing football at Topeka High, but that's one of the larger high school football players that I've seen in my time covering the sport, Pistol. How big is that news for the former Topeka High product that he's headed to Oklahoma?
Well, particularly after 1 year.
Yeah.
I think he was at Hutch, if I remember right. And for him to go after 1 year is amazing. One, that shows that he was okay on eligibility and could go after just 1 year, which gives him more time in Oklahoma. But two, that shows that he had a really good year in JUCO. And for anybody to go to a program of that caliber is big news.
It feels to me, and you obviously have a much better perspective on this for doing it how long you have, and because I've done it for such little time in comparison, but it does feel like in the coming years and within the last year or two too, we've had a lot more athletes in the city. I'm thinking specifically of football, but some other sports as well, who have really kind of ascended to, best recruit in a certain sport in the state. Like I think of BJ Canada. You want to talk about Topeka High, who is going to end up being one of the top football prospects in the country, or in the state, for his class next year. His sister, Naja, she obviously was one of the best softball recruits in the entire country. It feels like that top level talent has kind of risen to the forefront a little bit more in Topeka as of late. Do you feel a similar way?
Yes, I think it has. And I complained about this for a long, long time, that I thought the area was kind of overlooked. And I think that's changed. I think there are people that start here or look in this area. And I've always said that, I hope recruiters, particularly KU, K-State, I know they do so at Washburn and Emporia State, but, start in your backyard, see what you have in your backyard, and then branch out. Because you got to branch out and get some out-of-state kids and things like that. But, take care of your state first. And I think we're starting to do that. I mean, look at some of KU's top football players, and K-State's done it for a long time. I think they are looking in the backyard first.
They should be. I'm right there with you. They should be because, frankly, I know the goal is to win, right, Pistol? You want to get the best players, you want to win, bigger, faster, stronger, all of that. But I feel like there should be at least some sort of responsibility to at least do your due diligence locally, right?
Yeah. Yes, and I think they have started to, and I think that trend will continue. Now you got to have the athletes to back that up, but I think the area does have those athletes.
And I think, too, another good example of that is Bo Aldridge taking a visit to KU. I believe it was this past week. I don't remember if we got to talk about that last week, Pistol, but, I know he is going to plan to do the prep year, and, you got to figure that out. Who knows if he will reclassify up, but I do not remember the last time that we had a local basketball player who got a legit visit at KU or K-State. That feels like a big deal. That feels like it's a little bit more respect, again, for the players in these programs' backyard.
I think so. And it all depends on what Bo does this next year and who all comes in on him and things like that. But we know he has a lot of talent.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where he's going to play at the college level. They're probably trying to work that out too. But it's a good thing to hang your hat on that all these kids are getting that kind of attention.
Talking to Rick Peterson, this is the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Around on 580 Sports Talk. Pistol joins us every Thursday here on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Make sure you're checking out all of his great work covering our local athletes over at topsports.news. And before we let you go today, Pistol, I wanted to talk about a couple of events that are coming to Topeka, or being put on in Topeka, I should say, over the next few weeks before the end of the month. One, and I'm so excited about this, at Shawnee Heights, it's the Battle of the Bigs offensive lineman camp. I know you wrote about this a little while back, that Jason Swift and the Shawnee Heights program is putting this on. So what exactly is this going to be? Because we know about 7-on-7 camps and summer workouts and whatever. But when you talk about the Battle of the Bigs offensive lineman challenge, what does that actually include for this program?
Well, it's for the linemen. They have several drills and several competitions, and flipping the big tire and all kinds of stuff. It's one of my favorite events, and because linemen very seldom get any attention. That's what, when Jason started this, he told me, he said, the linemen are always wondering, you got 7-on-7 and all these other skill camps and stuff. Why can't we have something for us? So I think that was his thinking behind this. And it's fun just to see the big boys out there running around and they make sure they have plenty of food for them and get, that's part of the deal too. They give you a t-shirt, they give you food and they're competing for like a team trophy and stuff like that. So no, it's one of my favorite events, and I'll be out there. I go out there every year.
And I feel like, especially right now, talking about this top-level talent in football in the city right now, I feel like there has been a lot of really good talent, offensive and defensive line-wise. We were just talking about Danny Saili, who's going to Oklahoma starting next year. Shawnee Heights has obviously had a really good offensive line the last couple of seasons. Washburn Rural's got some really good players, offensive, defensive line. I know I'm glossing over a lot here, but I feel like that's a real strength for our local programs, and I feel like we should be showcasing that.
Yeah, and I think so, and I think there'll be some college coaches out there taking a look and things like that. So, yeah, I think it is, and I think, like I said, I think it's a great event.
Also wanted to get to this, and I know it is back. This has been I believe it's the second year this is going on, Pistol. At the end of the month, the Big Kev Give Back with Michael Wilhoit, Kyle Weems, two of the best athletes we've had in recent memory from the city of Topeka, coming back at Washburn, putting on the basketball and football camps for local kids. That is one of the coolest things, I think, all year that happens athletics-wise in the city, Pistol.
Well, and the thing is, both Michael and Kyle are really, they call in some favors. They pull in some favors. So they got a bunch of their buddies, pro players, current pro players, former pro players, current NFL coaches that come in for this. And like I said, there'll be a lot of names at that camp as far as instructors that hopefully the kids can identify with. I know people our age certainly can, because we've grown up watching a lot of these guys. But it's a cool event, and it's something that they hope to continue for several years.
And I know it means a lot to those guys to come back to Topeka and do it too. And we've talked to Kyle a number of times over the years. And I mean, we used to have Michael on the show every week before he got his NFL coaching career started. But I know what Topeka means to those guys and their home communities mean to those guys. And I think that's special. And I think that is something, Pistol, that really does connect with kids is that, hey, we wanted to come back and give back because we do care about you. We care about this place. And I think no matter what you're doing, that really resonates with people. And I think that's extremely valuable to have in a city like Topeka that, to be frank, has a lot of different socioeconomic classes and people from a lot of different backgrounds. I think that really resonates with kids.
Well, and I've seen that over the years. Guys like Kyle and Michael, guys like Gary Woodland. Melvin Douglas doesn't get back as much as they used to, but Melvin Douglas, on and on and on. Those guys still really are proud to be from Topeka, and it shows. And they're willing to step up and do things for Topeka.
That is absolutely awesome. That's coming up on June 30th. At any time, you can head to topsports.news. Check out all the great work by Rick Peterson and his crew over there. Also, make sure you're following Pistol on Twitter, where his handle is @Peterson_Rick. And he joins us every Thursday here on the show for the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Round. Pistol, as always, we appreciate the time. Enjoy the extra little bit of time off, and we'll talk to you soon.
Look forward to it.
That is Rick Peterson from topsports.news. Awesome stuff from Pistol, as always. And the Big Kev, I mean, that is such a cool thing that Kyle Weems and Mike Wilhoit do. And again, you guys know how much we like both of those dudes. And used to have Mike on for Mondays with Mike all the time a few NFL seasons ago now, again, before he got his coaching career started. But man, that is so cool for the kids in town. That is so cool for the two of them. And just a really cool event for the city as well. That's coming up on June 30th at the very end of this month. We need to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk. We've got the national and local news coming up here at the top of the hour. But to lead off the 4 o'clock hour, we've got some crosstalk with Fulton Caster. We'll talk some KU recruiting, his beloved Vegas Golden Knights winning the Stanley Cup, and a lot more. Our What is Wrong With You for today coming up. And we'll talk a little bit about the latest on Chris Jones and when to expect him back with the Chiefs. We'll get to all that, your texts, your YouTube comments, and more next hour on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Just getting started. I'm Brendan Dzwierzynski. Thank you so much for swinging by to be a part of the show today. Kyle Manthe filling in on the board for the next few days while Dan Lucero is on vacation. And we've got a little crosstalk with Fulton Caster coming up here in just a moment. Also this hour of the program, we'll get to today's What Is Wrong With You, sponsored by Top City Metal Supply. See if anyone can take down our current champion, the gentleman from Southern Illinois who stole a backhoe to use this as ride to get to the airport, so we didn't miss his flight. And then we'll talk a little Chris Jones later on in the hour. Not at minicamp this week. How concerned are the Chiefs about that? And the more I hear Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes talk about it, the less concerned I am that they're going to get a deal done. So we'll get to that coming up later on in the hour today. We're still taking your texts. You know the text line number, 785-272-9429. And the comment section on YouTube is open. The channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. Just search Sports on 580 on YouTube. Will be the first result. Click there, open the channel. You'll find the link to the live stream right there on the front page of our channel. And then you can come and watch the show along with listening to it here on this Thursday, June 15th. And with that, we welcome in our good pal, Fulton Caster, one half of Mic'd Up with Jake and Fulton every weekday from noon until 3. Fulton, important question for you. We have been waiting all week for this. Dan and I were well aware that it was your week for Crosstalk.
Yeah.
And we've been waiting to ask you, how many fish did you catch on your trip last week?
15 in 3 days.
15 in 3 days. Okay. That's a good haul.
The total breakdown per day was 663.
Okay, wow, almost got pretty dangerous there. Glad it was a little weaker day in the third day.
Yeah, that last day that we went out, we didn't what? It was just luckily the place we vacationed at had a fishing dock right off the back, so we could just stand on the dock and fish off of it.
Nice.
Great. Favorite thing ever, because I didn't have to worry about taking the boat out, didn't have to worry about untying it. It was just grab a fishing rod off the boat, walk out to the other dock and fish off of it.
Yeah, that's nice.
The water was basically still like glass that night, which is just terrible for fishing.
Yeah, I believe
You need movement. So it was a bad night all around. I caught the most with 3 that night. It was a bad night for everyone involved.
What did you catch?
I 95% of what I caught was crappie. I think I caught one bluegill. Actually, a bluegill was the first thing I caught all week.
Worst fish. If you
Bluegill?
ranked every single fish
You just
on
said
Earth,
bluegill.
worst fish, bluegill. They eat your hooks.
Yeah.
They eat your line.
Yes.
I've shared this before. I went fishing once in my life. Bluegill, fun fact, state fish of Illinois. Garbage fish.
Yeah.
It eats your hook.
Yeah, they're
Eat your line.
They're annoying little buggers. And then I think I caught
Bugger.
I think I caught
What is this, Essex?
I think I caught 2 largemouth bass also as well. My biggest fish I caught was, I think, a 2-pound bass was the biggest thing I caught a week. It was a lot of small fish that week.
Did you name them Billy?
No.
Big mouth. But you get that reference, right, Kyle? You're younger than the two of us. Well, I think you are.
Do you get
How
that
old
reference?
are you?
23.
Okay, you're a
you're
little
younger
younger than us.
I don't get that reference.
Big mouth Billy bass?
Big mouth Billy bass?
Is that like the
It's-
fish
it's
that's
a-
on the wall?
Yeah!
it's the
Okay,
wallback
yeah.
fish. You hit the button and they sing at you.
Yeah, they
I
sing,
understand
"Don't worry,
that.
be
I
happy."
did not know the reference, though.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Big Mouth Billy. Yeah, I got the reference. I didn't name it that, but I got
Okay.
the reference.
All right. Well, no, that's good enough for me. That's fine. Yeah, I was curious what you were actually catching. But yeah, bluegill, trash fish. Absolute garbage, nonsense, terrible fish. I'm glad you had a good time. And I'm glad you actually
it was a great vacation.
came away with a haul this time.
Yeah, it was good. I put the rumors to bed. I will no longer engage with any comments on my fishing ability. I'm just
Fair
gonna
enough.
let this die. Just
Fair
gonna let
enough.
it die.
All right. That was a good year. That was a
Yeah,
really good
needed
bit
it.
for a
Needed
really
it.
long
It was
time.
a year. That bit lasted a year.
We have Vance on YouTube asking, are you sure they weren't minnows and you thought they were fish?
Confident. Not gonna engage.
I know you and Jake had a limited amount of Royals chat today
Yeah, about 10, 15 minutes max.
because you're both just appalled by their existence. And frankly, I am too. But I wanted to ask
Yes.
for you to give me the most creative thing you can think of to try to generate some kind of spark for the Royals offensively. If you can think of anything for the pitching staff, please bring it, because I have nothing. I think they're a lost cause.
The idea for the pitching staff is that you scrap every other single player and you bring up all new guys.
Okay.
That's the idea for
All
pitching.
right. Never mind.
The only pitcher you allow to throw. I'll limit to the starting rotation because the bullpen has been up and down, but has been more up than down.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put them in their own little corner. Starting rotation, which is where most of the issues have been. If your name is not Zach Greinke, you don't get a pitch for this team anymore. If your name is not Zach Greinke, you don't get a pitch.
So even Singer. Even Lynch.
Yep. Your name is not Zach Greinke, you don't get a pitch.
Okay.
Singer and Lynch can come back eventually. But if your name is not Zach Greinke, as of now, you don't get a pitch anymore.
All right.
You now must be named Alec Marsh or Anthony Vinzaino or Drew Parrish or Jonathan Bolin or any of the other guys between AAA and I'll go all the way down to low A in Columbia. Like, you must be one of the member of those
Mazzucato season. Bring up Frank.
A fun fact about Frank Mazzucato. Because two fun facts about
he's
Columbia
been dealing for the Fireflies.
Frank Mazzucato did not pitch for a couple starts because he had a collision while shagging fly balls. Was that way shorter than anyone expected? I believe either pitched last night or is pitching tonight. He was one strikeout off of the Carolina League lead without pitching for 2 weeks still. And he was only behind his teammate.
Huh.
And also, second fun fact, the best ERA in all of, I believe, low A, if not all of minor league baseball for an entire team's pitching staff, Columbia Fireflies.
How about that?
At, I believe, 259 as a team.
Did you know that the Columbia Fireflies used to be the Savannah Sand Gnats?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I have a T-shirt.
I did not know that fun fact.
Yeah, that they just moved. The Sand Gnats used to play where the Savannah Bananas play now. There's a fun fact.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, my idea was to be more aggressive than aggressive on the base path.
It's ridiculous.
That it makes the analytical models gain sentience and get mad at you.
And the thing is, I'm not entirely against that. Because I've been calling for this team to run more all season. I figured based on the Royals' makeup of players on their roster and the fact that, the shorter bases, the bigger bases does not do a ton, but it legitimately does make the distance shorter. Plus the disengagement rules allow you to time pitchers a little better. I really thought they'd run more than they are because you have, obviously you got the track stars in Bobby Witt Jr. and Michael Garcia and Dayron Blanco. Those are your track stars. Then you got guys that just have decent speed who could steal a bag, and Nicky Lopez and MJ Melendez. Nick Prado's faster than you think. He's not fast. He is faster than I think anyone realizes, which is why he's stupidly aggressive when he runs the bases. He's not quick, but he's faster than you think. Any guy not named Salvador Perez should be trying to steal bases constantly. If your name's not Salvador Perez, try and steal more bases. Or, when healthy, Vinny Pasquantino.
You don't want Vinny running?
No, absolutely not. I went over this. Vinny Pasquantino, one of the literal slowest players in baseball.
Yeah, we looked that up.
We did. It was a while back, so the data might have changed. He was, I think, one of the top 10 slowest players in baseball. I think it was 9th percentile. It might have been lower. He is very not fast, which is, fair. Vinny's a big dude. He's a lumbering first baseman.
Yeah, you can live with that.
Yeah, his job is not to be fast. His job is to hit ball far.
I am not opposed, and I brought this up at the top of the show, I'm not opposed to going to the designated pinch runner.
No, I would be.
Nicky Lopez gets a single, which would be a miracle, and then Dayron Blanco comes in and runs.
Yeah.
And you say, you don't even need to worry about getting a hit here. You're just going to run.
Yeah. Because, and the theory, the point for me is you're struggling at times to get you're either getting a hard time getting a lot of hits put together, or even when you get a couple hits put together, you're then immediately stalling out. So you need to maximize when those hits can generate runs. That, from a literal logistical standpoint, that's what you need to be doing, which is why I want the Royals to run so much more. Because the more often that they can put a guy on second base, the earlier they can do that, the likelier chance you have that they're going to get one of those base hits that you can then try and score from second base. That's my overall point. That's I don't like that sometimes Matt Quatrero waits to let Bobby run until there's 2 outs.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, wait, no.
No, I'm with you on that.
Bobby Witt Jr., Dayron Blanco,
play to your strengths.
And Michael Garcia. Yeah. The minute they touch first base,
I'm with you on that.
They need to, the first time the pitcher goes home, they need to run. Obviously, watch for moves, don't get picked off, yada, yada, yada. The minute they go home, you go to second base.
I'm with you.
8 times out of 10, they're all going to get safe. And then, all right, cool. Let's say Bobby's still second.
Even 7 out of 10, that's kind of the marker for being analytically smart, right?
Really, it's usually about 70 to 75% what you want to be. All All right, cool. Now Bobby's on second. Oh, wait, it's that one time where, because Michael Massey's gone such a slump this month, it disappoints me so much.
Yeah, he's been awful, huh?
It's been brutal, which is just terrible for the Michael Massey hive.
Are you a member of that?
I think what he showed in May is more what he is than April. Like, what he was in May, hitting like 320, is not what he is fully. But him also hitting a $120 is not what he is. He's somewhere in the middle. Like, a 260, 270 hitter is truly where I believe he can be.
Okay.
He has way too much swing and miss in his game to ever be a higher percentage hitter.
Which is not what you want to see out of a middle infielder.
Exactly. I've said this plenty of times. He's a slightly different left-handed Salvador Perez when it comes to his swing and miss. He's just, you live with it because there are times when he's going right that aggressiveness does pay off. But he just swings and miss too much.
I want to add, I discredited him a couple at bats and hits earlier when we were talking about him. He is now, after last night's 0 for 4 for 34 this month.
He and a bunch of players have had a bad month. But like the theory being, okay, Maikel Garcia steals second. Oh, this is one of the rare times lately where Massey gets a hit. Mm-hmm. Well, now instead of Garcia going first to third, he has now scored because you were aggressive and took a base.
I'm with you.
And when you are a team like the Royals that has to find those little ways to win, I don't get why they're not more aggressive, and it drives me crazy.
Two things I want to get to real quick before we move on. One, Mark reminds me on YouTube, I also theorized, and Mark brought this up too, theorized we need some old school heel heat in the clubhouse.
Oh, yeah.
We need
yes.
R.I.P. Sheiky Baby. We need the Iron Sheik. We need
Sheiky Baby.
Post heel turn Sergeant Slaughter. We need, peak of his powers Triple H. We need someone coming in and insulting these guys constantly to try to hype them up like an old school wrestling
I need someone to pay Chris Jericho a good amount of money to walk in that locker room and proceed to call them every bad name he could think of.
Yeah, I'd get down with that. Maybe that'll motivate them a little bit.
No, I'm with it. Give me the old school heel heat.
Also from the text line from the 785, they say Brendan says bluegill is the worst fish, but has he heard of the bony-eared ass fish? And the answer is no. And I looked it up.
No for me too.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought this was a bit. I thought this was a joke.
Think this is a bit.
It is not. The bony-eared ass fish is the real thing.
Yeah. Well, it sounds pretty awful.
It has the smallest brain to body weight ratio of all vertebrates.
Huh.
Very tiny brain.
Huh.
So if you want to insult someone,
an idiot,
instead of calling them a bird brain, you can now say, "Wow, you're a real bony-eared ass fish brain."
Which just by the name of the fish does lend itself to being a natural insult.
So appreciate that from the text.
That's good.
I learned something new.
Learned something new today.
Every single day.
Yeah.
I had to ask. We lost one champion this week because Dan's on vacation. His Nuggets won the NBA championship on Monday.
Yep.
Your Vegas Golden Knights, after a long-awaited 6 years of existing,
very long time,
now champions of the National Hockey League, they win the Stanley Cup. You put this on Twitter, though, and I think it was an entirely fair approach. Like, it's a little different, right?
Yeah.
Like, this team you have gone full bore as a fan. Mm-hmm. Respect that. I do not have the same kind of disdain for the Vegas Golden Knights that Dan does, but I also don't care about hockey all that much in general.
I also didn't realize Dan had a disdain for Vegas.
Big time. I don't
get it.
Really, like, I know his rationale for it. I don't
What's
really
his
know
rationale?
what. Well, it's essentially that they haven't been through anything. It's a fake championship. No one cares. These playoffs were boring. They're like a fake team that's just a tourist attraction. No one cares about them. And Las Vegas is hot Milwaukee.
Well, Dan, I know you're not listening, but bite me.
Wow. Okay.
I could not disagree with that take more.
I will say he did give you props because he said Fulton has gone all in.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to Fulton because he has accepted them as his team and has been riding and dying with them from the beginning.
I just have gotten very fortunate that they've been very good the first 6 seasons. It's pretty awesome.
It is not the players' fault.
No.
That or the fans' fault that the NHL gave them the easiest expansion rules of all time.
No, not at all. And it worked out listen, it worked out much better than it could have. And it's been very interesting. But and this is kind of what I basically said for they won the title. It's great. It's really fun. I can't even pretend, though, that this team I like winning a championship has any level of the impact that I felt when the Chiefs, the Royals, or KU have won titles. Because I decided to get into hockey when Vegas became a franchise, it just was like, you're a new team. I'm not, it was clean slate and clean slate was what I did. It's why I did it. Was like, I'm getting in as soon as you're getting in. We're two new people enjoying this new endeavor together. Let's just see what happens. So it's like, it's nice. I enjoy it. There are a lot of players that like I saw from the original team, like for that Jonathan Marchessault got the Conn Smythe Trophy is awesome. Original Golden Knight, fantastic player, great dude, really cool for him. Like that part's cool, but like I will admit, it's not the same emotional level because it's been 6 years.
Yeah.
Like, they've been a part of my life for 6 years. It's not like when the Royals won in 2015 and I suffered through all of that. Plus, I will say, I will give Dan credit. He makes a valid point. They haven't had anything real bad happen yet. So
no,
it's not the same where you've had the toils of the bad stuff and then the good happens. They've been to the playoffs they've been to the Western Conference Finals 4 of their 6 years of existence. They've been to the Stanley Cup Finals twice.
That's pretty nice.
Like
maybe I should have
66% of the years they've existed, they've been in the Western Conference Finals. I can't lie. Dan has a point. It's a little different. Disagree calling it a fake championship. Now, I will say part of that is they did beat Florida in 8 seed, but that's not their fault. Blame the Boston Bruins, who won the most games in regular season in NHL history and then blew a 3-1 lead to Florida. You want to yell at anybody? Yell at Boston.
Look, I am just the messenger here. Do not shoot the messenger. I
get Dan's point. I'm not that mad at Dan, but
but it was fun. You enjoy it.
Dude, it was better than watching the Royals lose that night.
Well, yeah,
that was the only positive thing of that night is I had them both going at the same time, and it was over. I then watched Vegas put up 9 goals. It was really cool and enjoyed myself.
This was weird to think about and say, but the game got boring. Like game 5 to me got boring because
100%. Game 5 got boring.
Like goal scoring is great. You high scoring games, fun.
But at a certain point,
it was 9-3.
Yeah.
Then
the minute it became like 5-1, all the excitement it just flew out of the balloon.
The celebration starts at that point, right?
Yeah. Oh, I was partying at 5-1, and then it just kept going. Like, really at 4-1, I was like, okay, we're good. It got to 4-1. I think that was 4-1 in the third period, or it might have been near the end of the second period. And I was
it was second period.
Yeah, I was like, oh, they're done. I was like, Florida's done. They're cooked.
Florida
was not getting 4 goals off Aiden Hill.
I think it was 5-1 going to the third.
It might have been. I can't remember fully, but basically, as soon as it became 4-1, I was like, okay, we're done. Because as long as Aiden Hill is trying, Florida's not getting 4 goals. Both of Florida's 2 goals that got them to the 2 of the 3 they got were Vegas kind of just stopped trying. Like they weren't trying as hard. But no, it was boring. And the Stanley Cup Finals as an entirety were kind of boring because you had Vegas, a very good team, against an incredibly overachieving Florida team who lost all of their steam once they faced Vegas. Like, I truly don't know how Florida got there because I didn't watch much of the Eastern Conference playoffs. I don't know how Florida got there. I don't know how Boston blew a 3-1 lead to those guys. They're not that great. They're also kind of a bit of a bunch of chumps.
Were they up 3-1?
Yeah, Boston was up 3-1. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong. Someone can fact check me. I'm pretty sure Boston was up 3-1 in that series.
I thought they were down for almost the entire series.
I could be wrong. So let's go back to, let's review the tape.
Yeah, let's
review the tape.
We're going to go back here.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, you're right, Fulton. They were up 3-1.
Yeah, I was like, I think Florida might have won the first game.
No, it was Boston. Boston won games 1, 3, and 4.
Okay,
Florida won 2, and then 5 through 7.
Yeah, but I knew it was like 3-1. We're like, okay, because like I remember Florida winning. It was like, oh, interesting. And then Boston got there later, like, okay, we're fine here. And then Boston could not close. Which, wow, Boston sports team not closing in the new day and age we live in. Wow, big shock.
It was a very funny postseason for all Boston sports.
Hilarious.
Which I'm all about.
Yeah.
But congratulations on your Did you buy a bunch of swag?
No, because I never buy championship merch ever. Jake and I have had this discussion before. I have very limited disposable income.
Sure.
And so I ration it very much so.
Understandable.
I have never had a desire to buy championship merch because the memory of winning the championship is forever ingrained in my brain. I can tell you to a T what I was doing for both the Chiefs Super Bowl wins, for when the Royals won the 2015 World Series, and when KU won their national title. I could recite those nights to you perfectly. And that's enough for me. If I had a lot of extra disposable income, I probably would buy more championship merch.
Okay.
But given the budgetary restraints I have to give myself, it doesn't fit in the budget.
I was very bummed. I wore my Cubs World Series t-shirt yesterday. I realized that it has faded quite a bit. In fact, like the gold lettering that reads champions across it is all gone now. Like it is no longer gold.
Has been
7
years.
So yeah, oh my God. It has been 7 years at this point. Very sad.
It's been 8 for mine.
I miss winning championships in baseball.
Same, brother.
But when the Cubs won the NL pennant, they hadn't even done that since 1945.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I don't care that it's not the big thing. I'm buying a shirt because
that's fair.
Recent data indicates this is going to happen once in my lifetime. So I'm going to buy one. And then
fair.
I bought the championship. I flew back to Chicago. It was my senior year of college. I flew back on a whim, went to the parade and all of that. So like I'd be willing to do that if my beloved Brisbane Lions end up winning
You going down to Australia?
the Prem, the grand final in the AFL this year. I will probably not be flying to Brisbane.
Man, we're not going to get you down to Brisbane?
No, I would love to, but unfortunately, I would need to take out a second mortgage on a house I don't have.
I was going to say, you're telling me your wife would not be okay with you spending that much money on a plane ticket?
She'd probably be down to take a trip, but I don't think we could fund that.
That's fair.
Not super easy to get all the way to Eastern Australia.
That's not cheap.
But like if the Packers win again, sometimes I guess I only bought one KU shirt when we won the national title.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I'm relatively cheap, I think.
And that's my thing when it comes
I think that's what it comes down to.
That's what it comes down to me and championship merch is I am a fairly cheap person overall, and I try to be very I'm not perfect about it. There's plenty of stupid things I spend my money on. Lord knows that.
Relatable.
But when it comes to championship merch, I just never have because Jake asked me the same thing when the Chiefs won. And I was like, as long as I at least have the memories of winning the title, that's the bare minimum I need. And for the recent titles I have, I can tell you to a T every moment leading up to those championship wins. And they were great. All 4 of them were
that's
fantastic.
Fair. No, that's entirely fair. I get that.
I did contemplate buying some Stanley Cup merch, though.
I did also, but I spent money to get commemorative newspapers from when KU won. We have those framed in our bedroom now. Yeah.
Well, and I will say, I now do have a little plaque thing for KU's national title.
Okay,
so I do have some championship merch for there.
All right, fair enough.
I got that for KU.
That's a fair middle ground. Final thing. Speaking of KU, because we got to get out of here for a break.
Yep.
This has been maybe the greatest recruiting week for KU football
ever. I'm willing to say maybe ever.
And these guys have to get to campus, which is still a long way off because it's the class of 2024 we're talking about. They've still got to get on the field. They've still got to play well. We're a long way away from that. And frankly, these guys might not be contributing until we hit 25, 26.
Yeah.
That's how recruiting, that's how college football works.
Yeah.
But we heard this from Michael Swain on Tuesday. Dan was talking about it yesterday and on Tuesday as well. Recruiting momentum is real. And to go from, what a nice little plucky underdog story, Kansas football, to they just beat Iowa for a defensive back. They took a kid that Michigan was looking after. There's a bunch of programs that probably are going to be on the quarterback, Isaiah Marshall, within this next year. Those guys are coming to Kansas. That is a big deal. And other programs noticed that. And getting Jalen Todd yesterday, the corner who wanted to go to Iowa, that's a big freaking deal.
It really is. And recruiting momentum, I'm fully with it. I think that is a very real thing. You can kind of get a snowball effect of one guy can lead to 2, can lead to 3, can lead to 4, because all these guys can kind of see what's happening. And the biggest thing for me, even if, some of these guys don't pan out, whether that's for some reason they end up decommitting, whether that's they get on campus and playing football doesn't work out and they don't fit what Lance is trying to do, or they don't live up to their potential, all those different things, because you're right. It's such a long way until they're at least for sure Kansas Jayhawks, and then contributing Kansas Jayhawks is just another step to it. The fact that Kansas is being able to punch in the weight class with Big Ten institutions is a great step.
Teams that weren't garbage for 14 years.
Yeah, like that is a step for this program and realizes what it is. And the fact that Lance Leipold is actually building a more consistent base and is being able to tell these guys, like, look, we're not finished with what we're trying to be. We still have other steps to take. But if you come here and you see what these kids are doing, we're building some progress. We are becoming something. And you can either go to a Michigan or go to an Iowa and be what they've always been and maybe be buried on a depth chart, and it is what it is. Or you could, and the pitch should still be, or you can come to Kansas to where if you are part of similar seasons to Michigan and Iowa on the record book, you will be beloved and have maybe a better overall experience because you're part of building something at Kansas, whereas you're just part of something at Iowa or something at Michigan, whereas you are building something and a piece to building a program versus just being another piece in a program.
Yeah, we're a long way from getting real results, but man, it's been fun.
It's been great, dude. It's been awesome.
Another big week coming up, too, by the way. What are we going to get tomorrow on Mic'd Up?
Jake and I are going to tie with the Royals again, even though Jake could have put some money in the swear jar for it. It was very funny. We're going to look at the Royals in development and drafting.
Okay.
And are they good at identifying players? And are they good at developing players and how important that is in Major League Baseball? And also, Kent Swanson, the KC Sports Network, is going to swing on by, get his thoughts on the Chris Jones drama. And where's his concerno-meter at with Jones and his new contract?
That's Mic'd Up tomorrow from noon to 3 with Fulton and Jake. Fulton, we'll talk to you then.
Sounds good. See you tomorrow.
Coming up, today's What Is Wrong With You? That's next on 580 Sports Talk.
What the hell? What the hell?
Time for What Is Wrong With You on this Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dzwierzynski here, along with Kyle Manthe, joining us for What Is Wrong With You today. Our current winner for the week, as I alluded to earlier, it is the gentleman who was a little bit late to catch his flight down in Carbondale, Illinois. Had to get to the Carbondale airport. Didn't have a ride there, so he grabbed his guitar and stole a backhoe and rode it to the airport. And then the cop said, that doesn't belong here. And, well, they were right. It didn't. And he was arrested shortly thereafter when he landed in Nevada. That is our current winner. Before we get to our news stories today, I want to remind you that What Is Wrong With You is sponsored by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications, which saves time, money, and material. never settle when it comes to metal. Top City Metal Supply can be found on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Kyle and I each have a story today. I'm going to go first here, and I'm going to take us to Sacramento and a Mexican restaurant called Taqueria Garibaldi. You a big Mexican food fan, by the way?
I enjoy it. I'm not. It's not my favorite, but I do enjoy it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. A Sacramento Mexican restaurant, as I just mentioned, must pay out $140,000 to employees in back wages and damages after hiring a priest to hear employees' confessions during work hours. It comes after an investigation by California's Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division after Taqueria Garibaldi employees alleged a violation of the Fair Labor Standards Act. Employees said restaurants were denying employees overtime pay after they worked more than 40 hours in a work week. The Department of Labor also found the employer paid managers from the employee tip pool illegally, threatened employees, and even threatened immigration consequences, then fired a worker they believe complained to the department. All of these very bad. During litigation in federal court, an employee of Shea Garibaldi Incorporated testified that the restaurant brought in someone who they identified as a priest to hear confessions during work hours. The employee said the person told workers to get the sins out and confess if they'd stolen from the employer, been late for work, or had bad intentions for their employer. The Department of Labor says the employer agreed to a consent judgment, which ordered the company and its owners to pay $140K in back wages and damages to 35 employees. According to regional solicitor Mark Pillaton of San Francisco, quote, under oath, an employee of the restaurant explained how the restaurant offered a supposed priest to hear their workplace sins, while other employees reported that a manager falsely claimed that immigration issues would be raised by the department's investigation. This employer's despicable attempts to retaliate against employees were intended to silence workers, obstruct an investigation, and prevent the recovery of unpaid wages. They also owe $5,000 in civil penalties. So to recap, this employer wanted to get some dirt on its employees from the employees, so they hired a priest who may not have even been a real priest. We don't actually know that, to take a confessional during the day, and then also threatened to have workers deported, among other things, and overworked them too. You can't do that. This is up there with the worst boss stories we've had, along with the woman who worked at the Olive Garden in Overland Park, who pretty much said, I don't care if your dog died, I don't care if your kids are sick, you have to come to work at the Olive Garden. This one's up there with that. Kyle, what's your story for today?
My story comes from Belgium, where a man named David Barton, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. He's 45 years old. He's a TikToker.
Of course.
I didn't know there was 45-year-old TikTokers, but it makes sense when you hear the story. He faked his own death, somewhat in collaboration with his wife and children. He formulated the plan. He went through with it, and then he had to tell his wife and children a couple days after, so they were kind of in on it, but in the beginning they weren't. He faked his own death. The funeral happens. They're in the middle of the funeral, and a helicopter shows up. He comes down from the helicopter. Everyone's gathered around for the funeral, and he introduces himself to everyone. He's like, "Welcome to my funeral." And he hired a whole film crew that's recording everything. And basically, he was upset with his family not including him in things and the way he was being treated. And he wanted to kind of suss out of who were the good family members and who were kind of the bad ones who wouldn't really be as sad about his death. And that's definitely an interesting way to go about it.
Yeah, maybe they're not including you because you're a lunatic. This is insane. I saw this story yesterday. This is going internationally viral now. Dude, maybe you're just nuts. Maybe that's why people won't include you. Have you ever read Tom Sawyer?
I have not.
Well, the kid, Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn, the whole group, they attend their own funeral. They're assumed to be dead. They attend their own funeral. This is like an extreme version of that for the worst person you know. This guy sucks, man. Yeah, Vance on the YouTube comments said, I hate this guy. He wins. I think I agree. I hate the people in my story too from the taqueria.
They're both terrible.
Dude, come on. Why? There's so many better ways to handle I don't like that my family isn't including me. You could offer to do something with them. If that doesn't work, maybe you have a sit-down conversation with your wife, with your kids, and say, why aren't we doing things as a family? Or why are you doing things as a family without me? Let's go do something about it. There's probably even some spectacle-like things you could do that aren't faking your own death and then dropping from a helicopter like it's an action movie.
I don't know if you've seen the show Nathan For You or The Rehearsal or
Yeah.
heard about it. But
yeah.
This has big Nathan Fielder energy of creating the most elaborate way to solve like a somewhat minor problem that can be solved just by like talking to people.
Nathan For You is a great show.
Why not just create the most elaborate way that will make more people hate you than they did before?
Yeah. That's a perfect way to sum it up. Yeah, this is a very big Nathan Fielder kind of thing. I'm going to agree with the YouTube comments. I think this one wins for today. Man, that's so funny. Does that get your vote too?
It does get my vote.
All right. Does that beat the gentleman who stole a backhoe to drive to the airport? By the way, we looked it up. A backhoe can top out at 20 miles an hour if you're going full speed. Just get a bike. Steal a car like a normal thief. They stole a backhoe. Who gets the win?
I think the backhoe one is just so ridiculous because it's just such a stupid way to solve your problem. It doesn't make any sense. It's like hustling backwards pretty much.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to put it. All right, I'm gonna vote with you. I'm gonna go with the backhoe thief. It's just so dumb. It is such a simple fix. Be earlier. Like just a very simple fix to not get yourself in that problem, not get yourself arrested. That is our winner once again this week, the stolen backhoe in Carbondale, Illinois. That wins today. And What Is Wrong With You? Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. Top City Metal Supply, located right here in Topeka. Coming up on the other side of this timeout, what did Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes have to say about Chris Jones today, and how soon might we see him back with the Chiefs? I'm pretty confident that I'm on the same timeline as Mahomes and Reed. We'll discuss it next here on 580 Sports Talk. Chris Jones, as we know, not in attendance for the Kansas City Chiefs this week at supposedly mandatory minicamp. And I know earlier today on Mic'd Up, you heard Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes' press conferences with Jake and Fulton, but I wanted to really get to the parts they spoke, or the parts in their press conferences in which they spoke about Chris Jones, because I think, again, like we talked about yesterday with the Adam Schefter report, where the quote was so specific that Chris Jones wasn't there, but the Chiefs are really trying to work something out and they're open to signing him to an extension. That is very intentional wording. And I think what Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes had to say today, too, also very intentional with their desire to make sure it's known we want Chris Jones back. I think Mahomes was a little bit more expressive about that. I think Andy Reid sounded a little more dissatisfied, but I'm sure Chris Jones gets it. Like, hey, look, I know Andy Reid. I've been around this team long enough. I know how Andy Reid feels about things. I get it. I'm sure that he understands why Reid might seem a little bit more PO'd about this than maybe some of his teammates would. But take a listen. We'll start with Andy Reid to what Big Red had to say about Chris Jones and his absence from practice this week at mandatory minicamp.
Yeah, so Chris wasn't here, and kind of like last year, same type of deal. So that's his choice. So he chose not to be here. But I'm sure he'll be at training camp.
So, I mean, I know it's Brett's deal, really, but you have your feelings are pretty good right now on that front as far as camp goes?
Yeah, I don't even deal with it. I mean, I let Brett and his group deal with it. If you're there, you're there. And if you're not, we keep going. It's one of those deals. So they'll work all that out. They're communicating, so that's important.
What's your communication with Chris been about all this?
Make sure you're in shape.
Again, Andy Reid sounds a little PO'd about this, a little bit like, oh my, what are you doing? Like, get back here and practice. And this is the line we have heard before when guys haven't showed up to OTAs or minicamp or training camp or whatever it is. It's, we're going to work with the guys we have here. It's the Mike Tomlin line. This ended up being one of my favorite quotes, I think, of all time. We want volunteers, not hostages. Essentially, that's what Andy Reid is living by here, too. That, hey, when he gets here, he gets here. Until then, we've got the guys we've got. We're going to work with them. And Chris Jones, stay in shape. And he gave the line again about how he doesn't get involved in contract stuff. I've never quite believed that because we know how deeply involved in every element of the team Andy Reid is. So I don't entirely believe that. But I do think by saying that and saying they're working on it, Brett Veach is working on it, it's different than when it's, hey, he's the guy we like and we want him here. I mean, there's a very intentional way Reid is talking about this where he's saying they're working on it. It would be different if he said, I don't get involved in the money and we really like Chris and we'll see what happens. That to me would say, this feels like it's not getting done. That to me would say, wow, that is really reflective or reminds me, it's kind of a reflection of the Tyrann Mathieu situation where there was a lot of talk about how much the Chiefs liked him, but there was never actually any movement. This was very clearly Andy Reid saying, yeah, they're getting it done. I wish he was here, stay in shape. Now let's hear Patrick Mahomes, because, again, I think it's a very similar thing. He puts a timeline on it. Both Andy Reid did, and now Patrick Mahomes is about to in this next clip. They put a timeline on Jones returning. Mahomes throws his support behind him, and, again, just increases why I think this is going to get done, relatively speaking, in short order. Take a listen to what Mahomes had to say about Chris Jones.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's part of the business. I think Chris knows that we love him here. He's been a part of this team for a long time. He's one of the main reasons that we've had the success that we've had. He's been that leader on the defense. He's made a lot of big plays, and it seems like the biggest moments, and you want those guys on your team. And so, like you said, it's part of the business. It's the off season, even though you're getting better. I'm sure Chris is working, and he knows the defense that he needs to do. And the hope is that everything's good by training camp, and we're able to come in and just roll, and that's just part of it. And that's what makes this team so great is whenever guys like that have to go handle their business, we let them handle it. When they jump back in the building, we get back to right where we left off.
And again, the very intentional wording that they're out of the building because they're working on this stuff, and then they'll come back and get back to business. Think of the guys who have walked away or the Chiefs have willingly let walk away, right? Tyrann Mathieu is always going to be the ultimate example of this because the signs were so obvious. And I'm gonna really toot my own horn on this. I felt like something was amiss like week 7 of that year. Like, hey, something's a little weird here. I feel like if they were going to get this done, they would have gotten it done at this point, which, we thought all offseason it was going to happen, all training camp it was going to happen. We were nearly midway through the year before I even thought something was amiss. Then you get to the end of the season, he walks away in free agency, and you kind of realize, wow, those signs were really obvious that they weren't bringing him back. They really made it clear that this wasn't going to happen with him long term. With Chris Jones, it is so much, now we're behind him. We know there's working on things. We'll get back seamlessly when he comes back. It is so obvious that they know this is going to get done, and he's going to be back eventually. And again, both Reed and Mahomes put a timeline on it. That is significant. That, to me, is maybe the most significant part about any of this, is it wasn't, there was an element of, we'll see him when we see him, but Andy Reid said he's confident it's going to be training camp. Patrick Mahomes said he's confident it's going to be training camp when he gets back. That is a big deal to put that kind of timeline on it, because while it's not a deadline in the sense that, well, if it's not done by then, he's going to walk away, they're not going to do anything. It is a deadline. It's kind of a soft deadline in the sense that, hey, look, we got to get ready for this title defense. You're a key piece of the title defense. Your guys are behind you, but you've got to be back here for that. I think that, to me, is the most important part of that. Just saying, hey, look, dude, get your stuff done, take care of yourself, get paid, etc. But also, let's get back and get ready for the season. So I think it's pretty damn obvious this is going to get done. I was already, as I said earlier, about 95% certain this was happening. Give me now 96, 97, 98%. I think it's pretty obvious this is going to happen. The other thing, too, Brett Veach gets his guys. If the Chiefs want to keep someone during the Brett Veach era, they have kept them. And I asked Jake this, and I asked Fulton this when we were switching shows at 3 o'clock, when we made the hot change in and out of the studio. Can you recall someone in the Brett Veach era who the Chiefs wanted to keep? And they've got a number for everyone, but that number has a little more leeway when it's Patrick Mahomes or Chris Jones than when it's Orlando Brown, for an example. Has there been anyone who the Chiefs have said, we have to get, or we have to keep this guy who they haven't gotten? And I don't count Patrick Peterson, because we know there was very real interest there, but it was very much but we're going to be stingy about the compensation we sent back for him. We'd like him, but we don't need him. Remember, that was 2019 when we thought that might happen, right as Charvarius Ward was kind of emerging, and that defense got so good at the end of the 2019 season. They didn't need that move, and the Chiefs would have made it, but they didn't have to have it. Same with Odell Beckham Jr. We know the Chiefs were interested for a long time, but at a bargain. They weren't going to give him whatever he wanted, kind of like Baltimore ended up giving him with that 1 year, $15 million, 4 void years thing. That the Chiefs weren't going to do something like that. I'm talking about guys that they felt they needed to have. Orlando Brown wasn't that guy. The Chiefs probably would have been content bringing him back had he taken, 15 million or 20 million less than he took with his new deal in Cincinnati. But I don't think, Brown would have taken that. And frankly, I don't think the Chiefs would have said that. Like, hey, man, you go get paid. Take care of yourself. Thanks for the memories. Thanks for the great appearance in the Super Bowl. Thanks for playing really well in that game. And then they ended up with Juwan Taylor. They got Joe Thuney. They got their guys in the draft. Now, the draft is different. That's a crapshoot because you have no control over who gets taken before you. It just so happened Creed Humphrey and Nick Bolton fell right in their laps a couple of years ago. And Trey Smith was unfortunately dealing with some medical issues his time in college, and he ended up falling to the 6th round right in the Chiefs' lap. So in terms of pro personnel, when you look at the guys they have wanted to keep or the guys they have wanted to add, the Chiefs haven't missed in that regard. They haven't lost a bidding war for anyone. The closest thing they've been to that is Melvin Ingram, who then they got middle of that season anyway. They just had to trade a late pick to get him. So the Chiefs clearly want to get this done. I think Chris Jones certainly wants to get it done. I mean, he's an icon for this franchise now. So I think almost certainly it will get done. Sounds like training camp is the soft deadline. I would take them at their word that it'll happen by then. We've got 1 hour left of 580 Sports Talk coming up after the national and local news. Hey now, 1 hour left on 580 Sports Talk on this Thursday, June 15th. Thank you so much for hopping in and being a part of the show with us today. We're still taking your texts and your YouTube comments throughout the final hour of the show. The text line number is 785-272-9429. And the YouTube channel, where you can watch the video version of the show, is called Sports on 580 WIBW. I know I've been hyping it up a lot, well, for almost a year now. But if you haven't subscribed yet, we would love for you to do so. It's the best way to make sure you are always up to date with all of our video content, including the daily live streams of both 580 Sports Talk and Mic'd Up. So just go to youtube.com, search in the search bar, Sports on 580. That's all you need to type in for the first result. Click subscribe right there in the search window. And then you can go to our channel, see all of our old shows, the live stream today or any day when we're live, all of our old videos, the draft stuff we did, all of our YouTube shorts. It's like TikTok or Instagram Reels, but on YouTube pretty much. Check it all out. That's, again, on our YouTube channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. But appreciate you, whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on 580 or FM 104.9, or listening online around the globe at our website, 580WIBW.com. Coming up here in this 5 o'clock hour, just yours truly, Brendan Dzwierzynski in studio today. Kyle Manthe is across the glass as well, running the board. Dan is off on vacation for the next few days. But coming up in this final hour with just our small crew today, we'll get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines. A lot to get to today in the world of our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Wanted to get to some quotes from Jonathan Taylor, the stud running back for the Indianapolis Colts, about the future of the running back position and the worry that a lot of really good backs have. And I know we just talked about running backs the other day and how if you're the New York Giants, for example, would you rather have paid Daniel Jones the big bucks and have to live with Saquon Barkley on the tag? Or would you have rather given the big payday to Saquon Barkley and then lived with Daniel Jones on the tag? I made my stance clear. I would have rather had Barkley there because I'm a big Saquon guy, and I don't think you're ever winning anything anyway with Daniel Jones. But by the same token, in a pass-happy league where the value of the running back has been, I think, understandably diminished, especially for the non-elite running back, where are those big contracts and extensions going to come from? Jonathan Taylor talked about that. We're going to chat about it a little bit coming up later on this hour. Plus, some new quotes from Rob Manfred that continue to really hammer home the point that the worst commissioner in sports today and maybe of all time is one Robert Manfred. He is the worst. We'll get to that later on this hour. Plus your texts, plus your comments on YouTube. Our friend Vance points out that subscriber count getting closer to 300 on the YouTube. Maybe we'll do something fun when it gets to 300. It was not all that long ago. We were saying, hey, it gets to 100. All right. So we appreciate you guys who have subscribed to the YouTube. We put a lot of energy and effort into it. Glad you guys are enjoying the video product as well as the regular radio broadcast of all of our shows. All right. With that, let's get to the headlines. Our 580 Sports Talk headlines for this day after Flag Day. All right. I'm done with the Flag Day commentary. 2023, June 15th. First headline for me today. Let's get to some news and notes from around the... Let's go to the NFL first, because this is a name that came up for the Kansas City Chiefs. We were talking last segment during the end of the 4 o'clock hour about guys who the Chiefs want. Generally, they're able to get. They don't lose bidding wars for players, or at least they haven't during the Brett Veach era. Sounds like DeAndre Hopkins is getting maybe a little bit closer to a decision. At least that is what it appears to look like based on reports out of Boston, Foxborough, New England today. Hopkins currently on a visit with the New England Patriots. And the Patriots, I think, more than maybe any other team in the league, make a lot of sense as a landing spot for DeAndre Hopkins. They're not so bad that they're essentially tanking this year. They've got a good enough defense, and if Mac Jones is better this year than he was last year, and healthier too, they will probably be in the hunt for a playoff spot. I don't think they're going to win their division. I still think that will be the Buffalo Bills, maybe the Miami Dolphins, maybe the New York Jets. But they're going to, I think, at least be in the hunt for a playoff spot. They need receiver help. The Patriots receivers are among the worst receivers as a collective of any team in the NFL. I'm not a Mac Jones guy at quarterback. I've made that clear before. I don't think he's very good. But your wide receiver core right now, if you're New England, Juju Smith-Schuster, who's hurt, by the way. Hey, surprise! The Patriots are now concerned that he's got knee issues. Who could have told you that? Devontae Parker is still there. Tyquan Thornton, who had a pretty nice rookie year. Kendrick Bourne, who admitted the other day he did not try last year. That's not great. And then Kayshon Boutte, or Booty. Did we ever find out if it's Boutte or Booty? I think it might just be Booty, which is much funnier, and I would prefer that it be Booty. But he's another guy who was a late draft pick this year. At one time, was thought to be maybe a first-round pick wide receiver out of LSU. Did not play very well and did not play all that much in general this past year for LSU. And the Patriots also have cap space. They are currently just outside the top 10. Counting it up right now, they are, I want to say, 13th in the NFL with the most cap space remaining. Somehow the Bears have $32 million plus in cap space still. That seems not like a great thing when you're trying to help build a roster for your young quarterback. But the New England Patriots have just a shade under $15 million in cap space. Fittingly, what did Odell Beckham Jr. get paid by the Baltimore Ravens this year? 1 year, $15 million. Now, that's not a full guaranteed contract. It is also broken up over 5 years because they added void years to those to that contract. And that's pretty common now. But if you're the Patriots and you've got that space, DeAndre Hopkins right now is better than Odell Beckham Jr. I am certain about that. Absolutely 100% certain about that. I would pay that money to DeAndre Hopkins. If you think you can contend for a playoff spot, Bill Belichick's not going to tank. That's not going to happen. If you think you can contend for a playoff spot, yeah, go get that guy. Absolutely go get that guy. I think that's a sensible spot. I know Hopkins also took a visit to the Tennessee Titans, who, again, you want to talk about a team that has a weak depth chart, really in general. I think it might be a pretty rough year for the Titans in what'll probably be Ryan Tannehill's final year with that team. Their wide receiver room, we've been through this before. It's bad, man. They're top 5 right now. Treylon Burks, first round pick a year ago, really started poorly last season, but came on a little bit at the end of the year. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, Kyle Phillips, rookie from UCLA, Chris Moore, and Racy McMath, which sounds like a character from a children's book about how football taught someone to count. Racy McMath, okay? That's one of the second-line receivers for the Titans right now. They also need receiver help badly, but that team's probably going to really suck. I'm going to be honest with you, and maybe I should give more credit. I think Mike Vrabel is an awesome coach. I really do. But that roster as a whole is bad. Tannehill, Henry, 3 of those receivers I mentioned. Their starting tight end, Chigo Okonkwo, not really anything special. They gave a bunch of money to Andre Dillard in free agency to be their left tackle. Best of luck with that. They did draft Peter Skoronski, who I really like, but, their right tackle, Nicholas Petit-Frere, They signed Daniel Brunskill from the 49ers, who had a better year last year than he did the year before in San Francisco, but I'm not really moved by that addition either. I mean, that's just not a very good offense. I don't think their defense has enough talent either, especially in the middle of that group. I think if that's the 2 options for DeAndre Hopkins, I would much rather go to New England. I'd probably, I can see the pros and cons of playing for either Vrabel or Belichick, but I think you've got a better chance of actually competing for a playoff spot in the Patriots organization than you do the Titans organization. That's even with how bad the AFC South is outside of Jacksonville. So, and which is kind of crazy. Talking about Jacksonville this offseason as a team on the rise, they weren't good last year. Like, their record was not good. It wasn't impressive. They did make the playoffs. They had that incredible comeback. Understand all of that. But I still would rather go to New England if I was DeAndre Hopkins, especially because they got all that cap space. That seems to be an obvious answer for me. And the Patriots fans that I follow on Twitter, the Patriots accounts I've seen on Twitter, they all seem to be behind that as well. So while it was pretty obvious that was never going to happen for the Chiefs, or almost certainly never going to happen for the Chiefs, I do think the Patriots would make at least some amount of sense if that's where Hopkins wants to go. So that's your big NFL free agency news for the day. Let's get into a little sports business news, shall we, as we continue on our 580 Sports Talk headlines for this Thursday afternoon. I know you love hearing about Bally Sports at this point, right? Bally Sports, of course, you're a Royals fan, all too well. If you've got Dish or you've got YouTube TV or a number of other providers, you can't watch them legally. Join the club. But if you've got Cox and Spectrum, maybe, I think you can watch them normally. We know it's bad service. It's been since the very beginning. We know that they stopped paying a number of their rights fees to teams. MLB reclaimed Padres broadcasts. We've talked about all of that. Well, you may not have known that Bally Sports also televises college sports. In fact, Dan and I talked about this a little bit during the college basketball season, that he would sometimes late at night watch West Coast Conference basketball because they would televise it on Bally. So that's how he watched his dad's alma mater, Pepperdine. That's how he would watch Dine play during this basketball season and got really into West Coast Conference basketball. And during football season and basketball season, they've got to deal with the ACC as well via Raycom Sports. And it's a whole thing. You've got to be an extreme nerd to know anything about it or even care about the contracts and Raycom Sports and the ACC and all that. Essentially, all you need to know for the point of this headline, one of the ACC's media partners for the last 2 years now, I believe, had been putting its least valuable game essentially of the week from football and basketball on Bally Sports. Not everyone gets Bally Sports, as we know. So if you are a fan of, Duke or Miami, Florida football, you might not have been able to watch your conference game last year because it might have been on a regional sports network that you don't have or can't get. So not a great situation in the ACC either. And there was some ACC basketball that also ended up on that station. Well, according to a legal filing today, a bankruptcy court filing, this is great. Diamond filed to reject the Raycom contract for broadcasting ACC games effective today. Diamond says that Raycom asked them to reject it so they can seek other broadcast partners for next season. Diamond missed a payment to Raycom before they filed for bankruptcy. So essentially the ACC said, hey, stop paying us. Reject the contract. We want you to just stop pretending that you are going to be a part of this and we are going to move on to something else. We're done. We're out. Which is, for Bally Sports, Diamond Sports Group, etc., that's probably for the best considering they can't pay anybody at this point. And hopefully that means the Kansas City Royals soon so that the Royals can be put on another channel, but that's neither here nor there. That's a big deal to now have another entity that is not getting paid by this group that has to go somewhere else. If I had been able to get Bally Sports Network, I probably would have enjoyed being able to watch an extra ACC game, or if I'm being completely frank with you, have another game I could potentially watch and place a wager on during the college football season, to be completely blunt about it. But now this is going to go to the CW, or it's going to go to Ion, or it's going to go to whatever other Scripps company TV stations are out there. They're really getting deep into the sports broadcasting space now, and it sounds like they might be for sure doing some Pac-12 games in the near future, or at least that's one of the leading candidates to get some Pac-12 games. So I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but baseball fans, NBA fans, and also other fans of sports, hockey, I think, ended up on Bally for a few different network or a few different markets. If you're a fan of any of those leagues, well, congratulations. The Bally era is probably coming to an end sooner rather than later. Your NBA team, your hockey team, your baseball team, all probably are going to be on new homes very soon. And that also includes ACC basketball and football now, too. Next headline, we'll get back to the business of sports here in a minute. First, though, we've got some breaking news. This is just going live now. Yeah, this just came across my Twitter right now. But it is seemingly official, and I'm going to look for some further confirmation on this. But it appears that a story we talked about several months ago now. This came up during football season, high school football season, if I'm not mistaken. But the Mid-East League and the Big Seven League are planning, and it is now official, it appears, They are going to merge the two leagues together. So those leagues, which have been some of the best small school leagues, certainly in Northeast Kansas, if not the entire state of Kansas, this is now going to include Hiawatha, Holton, Jeff West, Nemaha Central, Perry-LeCompton, Riley County, Rossville, Royal Valley, Sabetha, Silver Lake, and St. Mary's. Rock Creek is leaving the Mideast League. They're joining the NCKL, and Wabunzie is leaving to join the Flint Hills League. That all starts with the next academic year. Riverside is also leaving the Big Seven. They're heading to the NEKL at the start of this coming year. The reasoning given, and this is given by Holton High School, is that the formation of this league, the Big East, if you will improve scheduling, logistics, increase academic and extracurricular opportunities, and further elevate these historically successful member schools. So I think that, and we've talked about this with Rick Peterson a bunch, and I wish this had broken like 2 hours ago. It would have been perfectly in time to talk about this with Rick Peterson in the high school whip around. We'll talk about it next week, I suppose. I think most of the college school realignment we have been through within the last couple of years, I understand it, but I don't necessarily like it. You know, I look at Highland Park moving to what is now the Meadowlark Conference, for example. And I think, yes, in terms of competition, it's been really good for that program. Girls basketball exploded this year. The boys basketball team was the best team in 5A. I still stand on that. Even though they did not win the state championship, I still stand firmly of the belief that Highland Park boys basketball was the best team in Class 5A this year. Highland Park football, best season in decades this year, playing in the Meadowlark Conference. There's value to that. You also lose out on rivalries. Highland Park didn't play Topeka West. Highland Park didn't play Topeka High. Didn't play other Topeka schools that it has played forever. It didn't even play many schools closer than far extreme eastern Kansas, other than basketball games against Bonner Springs. You know, they were playing games against Atchison. They were playing all the Kansas City schools. That makes it harder for parents, for fans, for community members to go and see that. I look at the growth of the United Kansas Conference, which I will say, in terms of quality of competition, I think the UKC had a really good first expanded year. I think Seaman and Topeka West moved into that league fairly seamlessly. We got the rebirth of Seaman versus Shawnee Heights, for example, and Topeka West versus Shawnee Heights by the same token from the old Centennial League. But there's not as much connection locally when Seaman is spending a Friday night basketball game making a road trip to Baser Linwood like you would get if Seaman was playing against Washburn Rural, right? I mean, it's just not the same kind of connection. All that is a roundabout way to say, I get this. I get this Big Seven Mideast League merger. I guess, are we calling it the Big East? Is that official? We'll have to get confirmation about that. But I guess I do get this a little bit more because each league was already losing someone for whatever reason. And I'm not going to pretend I know the exact reason why Riverside or Rock Creek or Wabunzie are leaving their respective leagues. But if the leagues were already getting smaller, you're already fairly close to one another. I get this. I can understand this. I can respect it to a degree. And to the point brought up in those notes I just read to you from Holton, these are two good leagues. I mean, these are leagues that have a lot of history, a lot of tradition, and a lot of really good programs in their respective sports. And I think this is going to be fun. I can get down with this. You know, Mideast League was going to be down to 4 teams with the departure of Wabunzie and Rock Creek. So I get it. It's not too far away. You're going to keep a lot of these rivalries together. Like, can you imagine if Silver Lake and Rossville went to different leagues? That'd be crazy. It'd be preposterous. So you're keeping most of these rivalries together between the two leagues. Overall, I think it's a positive. I'm going to have to get word from my guy, Larry Latimer. I'll have to get the coach on the horn and see what he has to say about these two leagues merging together. Obviously, longtime coach at Jeff West, among other places. See what he has to say about the formation of the new Big East League in high school athletics. I do want to get to this. When we're talking about the business of sports a little bit earlier and what's going on with Diamond and Valley Sports and the fact that they're no longer going to get their college football and basketball package with the ACC. There's a bill being worked on right now that is being sponsored by a pair of senators. It's a bipartisan bill sponsored by Democratic Senator Joe Manchin in West Virginia and Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville in Alabama. It's an NIL bill, a name, image, and likeness rights law, or they're working to make it law, that is currently working through the United States Congress, halls of Congress, Senate anyway. And a lot of lobbying from athletic directors, from university presidents, chancellors, etc., have gone into this bill that these two senators have now proposed. And it appears that this bill is pretty whack, to be completely honest with you. And I would love to get your opinion on this, because I know I view NIL rights and the quote-unquote Wild West of the NIL era a little bit differently than a lot of people do. I think Dan and I have fairly similar views, but they might not be exactly the same even between just the two of us, and that's totally fine. Here is a list of some of what's included in this bill, okay? Players cannot sign NIL deals until they've completed at least one semester in college. Players cannot sign deals with companies or groups that can be considered of harmful influence, which include alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, or gambling companies. Players must report all earnings to the NCAA within 30 days, or they lose eligibility to play. Players must use an NCAA-approved contract structure and form for the deal to be valid and to maintain their eligibility. And NIL collectives and companies must be pre-approved by the NCAA before they can make an offer to a player. The selling point here is that the bill also requires the NCAA to use 1% of postseason income to cover players' medical expenses through the age of 28. So that's significant. Help the players a little bit, get some more medical coverage beyond their college days. But that is only eligible for medical coverage if they are enrolled at the university they played with, or if they received their degree. If you leave before receiving your degree, you lose out on that medical benefit. So Stetson Bennett, who spent 6 or 7 years in college and didn't get a degree, he would not be eligible for this, for an example. Again, let us know. Text line 785-272-9429. YouTube comment section as well. Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of the channel. I'd love to get your thoughts on what is included in this bill. I think this sucks, to be completely honest with you. Just one man's opinion. But most schools already say or tell you that they have rules against doing deals with alcohol companies, tobacco companies, marijuana dispensaries, gambling companies. You're not going to find deals with those organizations, generally speaking, for college athletes. Those are already essentially banned by pretty much every school, because these schools have enough sense to say, all right, you can't do ads for liquor. You can't do ads for gambling companies. We don't want to get in bed with that. We don't want you to be tacitly endorsing that on our behalf. No go on that. That's pretty much already there. Players must report all earnings to the NCAA within 30 days or they lose the eligibility to play. Answer me this. Would you trust the NCAA to get the paperwork stuff right? Would you trust the NCAA to get the bureaucratic part of all this right? If your answer is yes, and that is fair, that is your opinion, I would love for you to explain why to me. Why would you ever trust that the NCAA is going to get this done on time? How often do we hear stories about paperwork was wrong, something was filed improperly? The NCAA essentially just shot from the hip and said, well, it's okay for you, but not okay for you. Are there waivers involved? No, that is a gigantic box of worms for me. Or can of worms, Pandora's box, whatever cliche you want to use. It's a gigantic one, and I would not touch that with a 10-foot pole. Players cannot sign NIL deals until they've completed at least one semester in college. My question is why? Seriously, if we're talking about the ability to make money, if we are talking about the ability to essentially follow our country's economic system, why are we limiting this just to people who have completed a semester of college? Also, what is completing? seriously, what does it mean to complete a semester of college? Does this mean that if you just take enough classes but don't pass them, does this mean you have to have passed that year? What specifically does that mean? I would need more specifics about that. And frankly, I think it's inappropriate. Why are we restricting anyone from this? Isn't that the entire point? And the argument we always bring up that, hey, look, we think that every college student, if they're not an athlete, can make money. The musician can give lessons. The student media member can go be an intern and get paid. The kid who writes for the newspaper. So why can't the athlete? Now we can say, well, they can, but you got to wait. No, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense at all. We've got a texter here from the 785, and I agree with our texter's points all the way through here. So to that point, they say, so first semester freshman athletes are unpaid interns now. That's awful. I agree. I 100% agree. Why? It's got to be everyone. You cannot limit that. That doesn't make sense. That's not appropriate. There's just no logical sense behind it. This is what happens when you get a former politician whose entire job is lobbying to be the new head of the NCAA. You get this bureaucratic stuff. Our texter also says this. Even as a guy who is skeptical of some of the downside and potential risks of NIL, this bill is gross. Keep the government out of sports. Big government oversight and regulations ruin anything that ever has the potential to be fun or good. The answer is deregulation, not more regulation. Get rid of the NCAA altogether. I'm with you on that. I don't want to get too deep into the political stuff because I'd be on a different time slot if I was being paid to give my political view on things. But I do think you've got a point here. And I would feel the same way. And again, my point that you brought Charlie Baker in to be the head of the NCAA, essentially to lobby Congress to keep the NCAA alive. That should have been a red flag to everybody in the college sports landscape. This is not going to end well. This is going to be bad for everyone involved. This is a desperate last grasp at trying to remain relevant and trying to maintain any semblance of power, and it's going to end poorly. And I hope this gets shot down. If not by other senators, if not by members of the House of Representatives, then by the Supreme Court, because this stinks. This is bad for athletes. And I understand that there's a lot of skepticism out there about who is getting money and, you know, the collectives versus actually using your name, image, and likeness to sell something. I understand all of that. But I think you can both be skeptical of those things or just, frankly, confused, I think, because it's very confusing. We follow this stuff intensely, and I'm still confused by a lot of it. And still think, wait, so some guys are allowed to get paid, but some aren't? Why do you have it doesn't make sense. It truly, logically, to me, does not make sense. Appreciate you guys jumping in and being a part of the conversation. I thought this was worth bringing up. It's worth following through with. I have a hard time imagining this bill being passed through to law, and frankly, I think that's a good thing for college athletes. That'll do it for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. Come on back on the other side of this time out. Wanted to talk a little bit about what I would like to call the running back problem in the NFL. Jonathan Taylor's the latest one to speak out about it, but is there really any fix down the line? Plus, we've got some quotes from Rob Manfred that will they're going to make you mad. And I know that because they made me pretty dang mad. We'll talk about all that coming up later this hour on 580 Sports Talk. We have confirmation, by the way, that the merged league between the Big Seven and the Mid-East is indeed now the Big East League. The member schools have all together now released the same press release we got to earlier. It's exciting. I think it's going to be a fun league. And again, they were both shrinking, so it makes sense. Merge them together. I wish the leagues mattered more in football still. This is a blast of a league. You're going to have some really dang good football programs. You got Sabetha, Nemaha Central. Perry has obviously had some really good programs. St. Mary's just won the 1A state championship. Silver Lake, Rock Creek, Rossville. That's awesome. That is really, really cool. Excited for all those programs. And again, we'll talk about that more next Thursday with Rick Peterson from topsports.news on next week's edition of the Invista Credit Union High School Whip Round, which we had earlier today on the show. And this went live just a little bit after we talked to Pistol today. I told you a little bit earlier about some quotes from Jonathan Taylor, the running back of the Indianapolis Colts, about running backs who are seeking new deals right now. Taylor's going into the final year of his contract. He was a second-round pick a few years ago. He's entering year 4. Former All-Pro, Pro Bowler. He's awesome. He was great in college. He's really darn good in the NFL. Here are some of his quotes about running backs who are looking for a payday right now. Thinking of Dalvin Cook, who's 6 years into the league, 4 years in a row, went for over 1,100 yards. Just got cut by the Vikings. Saquon Barkley is holding out on the franchise tag. Josh Jacobs is holding out on the franchise tag. Jonathan Taylor had this to say entering the final year of his deal. Quote, you definitely have to pay attention just so you know, okay, what type of space are you entering into? And you just hope from the track record here in Indianapolis that things are being evaluated in the right way. You see why guys request trades. They just want to feel valued not only by their coaches, their teammates, but the organizations as well. And he says, we definitely have approached a new contract. Hopefully they can see the value. So it's the same argument that a lot of these guys have made in recent years, and a lot of the arguments that these guys have made in recent weeks, again, with what's going on with Cook, with Barkley, with Jacobs, among others. And as I mentioned earlier this week, I do think that there is still a spot for money in the NFL to go to elite running backs. I'm not saying that if Alexander Madison, who's the new replacement for Dalvin Cook in Minnesota, if he has one great year, that suddenly he is worth a gigantic contract. I don't think he's that kind of player. But if I'm talking about the elite of the elite, and I think Christian McCaffrey is in that group, I personally have a bias toward Aaron Jones, but I would put him in that group and more on the two of them specifically later. I would say Saquon Barkley is up there. I think Josh Jacobs, who just led the NFL in rushing, is in that discussion. And I think you could put Jonathan Taylor in that discussion. Not to say anything of Derrick Henry, who's been banged up recently, but is still a dang good player. That's your elite group. I think there is room for those guys to get long-term extensions. I think there is room in the league, in salary caps, in, the zeitgeist of how do we build a good team? How do we build a championship contending roster? I think you can do that while paying money to a good to great running back. I don't know that Dalvin Cook falls in that category. Maybe you don't think Josh Jacobs does. There's a reason the Raiders weren't going to pay him and ended up having to put him on the tag after he led the NFL in rushing yards, which he, like Saquon Barkley, still has not signed. But at the same time, if you're not one of those guys, or you even have one down year, where do you expect all this money to suddenly come from? And while I want these guys to get paid, because, good for them, I'm never going to say, I hope this guy doesn't make money. But teams are going to keep saying, hey, look at the teams that have won the Super Bowl. And look at what their leading rushers have gotten paid. We went over these numbers. I couldn't find the most updated chart, but I found one from right after Super Bowl 54 that the Chiefs won. That year, Damian Williams was the leading rusher for the Super Bowl champions. He made $1,050,000 in base salary that year. The year before, 2019, Super Bowl 53, the Patriots beat the Rams. Your leading rusher was Sony Michel for the Patriots. His contract was worth less than $500,000. Isaiah Pacheco this year for the Chiefs, the Super Bowl 57 champions, made nothing. He made pennies on the dollar relative to the salary cap for an NFL champion. That's what Isaiah Pacheco is making. I don't think, and maybe this is unfair to guess, still 3 years out from Isaiah Pacheco looking for his second contract. I don't think he's going to get a deal like this. I like Isaiah Pacheco, but I don't think he's a transcendent player like Christian McCaffrey. I think he is a transcendent player. I really do. I have thought that since he was at Stanford. He was that kind of prospect coming out of college. I think he's been that kind of player when healthy in the NFL. And of all the good running backs who have gone through the Shanahan system, all the players, Terrell Davis was a Hall of Famer back in the day with the Broncos. But look at the dudes who have been in either San Francisco or in Denver during Kyle and Mike's respective tenures. Reuben Drones, Tatum Bell, Mike Anderson, Raheem Mostert, all these dudes who have had these great years. Matt Breida, when he was healthy, before moving on to Buffalo. Christian McCaffrey was different. Instantly, he took that offense to the next level with what he was able to do there. That's the kind of running back I'm talking about. For anyone who's not that, I mean, where's that money going to come from? Champions are not paying their running backs money and haven't been doing it for over a decade. It's been a long time. Percy Harvin was, I believe, the last Super Bowl winning team's leading rusher who made over $2 million, or over $2.5 million in that season. That's a long time ago now. That was Super Bowl 48. We're going into Super Bowl 58 this coming year. And the data really goes back beyond him as well, or earlier than him as well. This league is super pass happy. And if you're not a running back who catches the ball a lot and adds more value in the passing game, you are less valuable to a lot of offenses. And again, Christian McCaffrey is that guy. Aaron Jones is that guy. The Packers run Aaron Jones trying to get hole shots. They run him on deep wheels. They have him trying to run the whole route tree. If you're not that kind of guy, I don't know that money is there for you. And I think about that with Jonathan Taylor. Awesome running back. I would probably try to work out a deal with him. But he's not a receiver like that. He averages under 8 yards a catch for his career in 3 seasons. I just have a hard time seeing how this is going to change. And I've seen this brought up by a couple of players on social media. Well, what if the running backs had their own union? Guys, come on. I understand why a running back would say that because they want more money. They want more security. They want longer-term deals. I get it. No disrespect to them for pushing for what they want, what they think they need. That's a ridiculous notion. I've seen some fans say that too. Guys, that's insane. The NFLPA would never allow that. And then you're opening a situation, and I hate to use the slippery slope fallacy here, but what happens when wide receivers say, hey, we catch balls all the time. We are in a pass-happy league. We deserve to be getting more money. What happens when quarterbacks say, what about the quarterback union? We are the most valuable player on the team. This should count completely separately from the rest of the salary cap. It just doesn't make any amount of sense. So unless you're truly the elite of the elite, maybe Jonathan Taylor is, you can still get that contract. But if you're outside that group, I don't know that it's going to come. And as much as that sucks, and you put your body through all that wear and tear, let's also recognize you're putting your body through all that wear and tear, and that's why teams think they can move on. That sucks, but I don't think that there is a clear way out of that, again, unless you are a transformative player, and there are very few of those running backs in the NFL right now. And if you're not transformative, then most of your production can probably be replaced by someone who's a whole lot cheaper. And if you want an example of that, go look at Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Isaiah Pacheco from just this past season. We have another timeout on the docket when we come back after we pay these bills. Quotes from Rob Manfred that will make you very angry. And I know because they made me very angry. That's next on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dzwierzynski here with you on 580 Sports Talk, finishing things up on this Thursday afternoon. Kyle Manthe here with us as well. He's running the board today and through next Wednesday. Dan Lucero off on vacation for the next week. We got some quotes from Rob Manfred. I've been promising them to you throughout the show. This guy sucks. This guy is a turd, and I don't feel any sort of remorse in saying that. And if you don't like that word, I'm sorry. Come up with your own insult. He's an idiot. He's an ingrate. He's an imbecile. Whatever word you want to use, that's what Rob Manfred is. He was speaking to the media today and was asked about the A's relocation, the reverse boycott, and all that. And here's what the commissioner of Major League Baseball had to say about the A's relocating. Quote, "The real question is, what is it Oakland was prepared to do? There's no Oakland offer, okay? They never got to a point where they had a plan to build a stadium at any site. And it's not just John Fisher. The community has to provide support." He can't afford it, I almost swore. You idiot. You complete idiot. He can afford it. He can do it. Yes, they were willing to support you. John Fisher wasn't willing to play nice. This has been in the work for years. Stop lying. We all know it. It is all out there. Oakland has been willing to work with the city. It has gone to multiple votes. The city council has been willing to work with you for a long time on multiple sites. The A's are the ones who wouldn't play nice. John Fisher and Dave Kaval are the ones who wouldn't play nice. And I know the commissioner works for the owners, but give me a break. But don't worry. Let's go Billy Mays here. But wait, there's more. Rob Manfred on the reverse boycott by the fans in Oakland, where he could have taken the high road. He could have just said, it was great to see that ballpark full. Those are some passionate people. I understand that they feel upset about what's happening. I get it. I feel for them. As someone who cares about baseball, I feel for them. But he doesn't care about baseball. In fact, he hates baseball, and all of his actions prove that to you. So here's this quote on the Oakland fans and their reverse boycott. Quote, it was great. It is great to see what is this year almost an average Major League Baseball crowd in the facility for one night. That's a great thing. Kiss my ass, dude. Get out of here. And I know people aren't going to like that I said that. I apologize, but I'm fired up. This is something I care about. This is something that I know you or many of you care about. Get out of my face with this. Don't talk down to these people who you are ripping a team away from, most of whom were not alive when the A's were ripped away from Kansas City. We had a texter just the other day who said that they're not over that and they don't feel any pity for the A's. And if you believe that, that's fine. That's totally okay. You are allowed to have that opinion. But most of the people who were there last night were not around for that. They were not alive for that. This is all they know. And you're going to insult them? You're going to put them down? You're going to be sarcastic to them? And finally, let's add this. When Rob Manfred was presented with a quote about how, well, studies show that generally speaking, stadiums do not generate local economic growth, Rob Manfred decided to go anti-intellectualism. Quote, "I love academics. They're great. Take the areas where baseball stadiums had been built. Look at what was around Truist Park before that was built. That's where the Braves play. Academics can say whatever they want. You're a moron. Rob Manfred is an idiot. And the thing is, with these quotes, Rob Manfred thinks you are an idiot. So even if you don't believe myself or Dan or Fulton or Jake or anyone who tells you that Rob Manfred doesn't care about baseball, know this. A, I am convinced he does. But B, by giving you these quotes, by giving fans these quotes about teams, about where these teams are located, about the business of baseball, know that not only is he a dope, he thinks you're a dope too. And he is trying to play you. Just know that. The sport you care about is not cared about by the most powerful person in that sport. And that should make everyone ashamed of what Major League Baseball is right now. We have to get to one final break. The final word is coming up right after this on 580 Sports Talk. Time to wrap up this Thursday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Appreciate you guys all hanging out with us throughout the show today. And I'm going to use my final word time to just continue my thoughts from last segment and talking about Rob Manfred because we didn't get a ton of time to talk about it. We missed a lot today. There's so much going on. We didn't even talk about KU and Wichita State inking a game. They're going to play on December 30th. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. But I know some folks probably not going to like that I said the butt word. I apologize for that. But I'm fired up. This is something I care about. That I've cared about my whole life. The person who is the most important figure in the sport doesn't like it. And I don't feel bad saying that I hate Rob Manfred because he hates me. And these quotes indicate that he hates baseball, that he hates the fans. He hates the whole organization, except the guys that are paying us checks, I guess, which to me leads me to believe, why did you take this job if you hate everything about it so much? It's embarrassing for Major League Baseball. Mark on YouTube says that Rob Manfred's worse than Bud Selig, if that's possible. Yes, and I hate Bud Selig. Bud Selig was a rat. Bud Selig belonged nowhere near Cooperstown unless he bought a ticket to get in, and they put him in, and he was a better commissioner than Rob Manfred. It's embarrassing. It's sickening, and Major League Baseball as a whole should be ashamed of itself. That does it, though, for 580 Sports Talk today. We're back tomorrow. We'll talk to Matt Derrick. Taylor Eldridge from the Wichita Eagle will join us to talk about that KU Wichita State game. We're back tomorrow from 3 until 6 for Kyle Manthe. I'm Brendan Dzwierzynski. Talk to you then on 580 Sports Talk.